Well, good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on this 5th day of January. It is Friday. So listen, we're going to have our regular Friday show, which means not one, but two exciting rounds of Fone Ur Farb Friday, which will be at 4:35 and 5:35. A lot of news to cover along the way. So buckle up, everybody. Here we go. I want to start with some news. It's closer to home. They have, this is the time of year where you often get stories, that come across the transom that look back at the last year. See, we're just beginning 2024, so a lot of times in the early going of 2024, you get the totals of something that occurred in 2023. And with regard to Nashville, they have now totaled up the number of homicides in 2023. And there were 101 homicides in Nashville in the year 2023. That's apparently down 3 from the previous year. Some of them, of course, were quite heinous and quite memorable. We had the Covenant shooting where we lost 6 adults and 3 children. Well, 6 people, including 3 children. A 4-year-old shot to death. Just because happened to be in the car that was being targeted, and some other pretty gross and heinous things that happened. But I was taken by some of the statistics as they break down these murder cases. So where are our problems? We often are told that the black community is very worried about over policing of their area. But once again, when you start to look at these numbers and you look at them by gender, age, and race, you begin to wonder, well, where exactly is our violent problem in Nashville? According to the Tennessean, who did this breakdown, the victims were generally young, more than half of them under the age of 30. A third of all victims were between the ages of 20 or 29. And then the second highest number of victims were teenagers or those who were even younger. That's very concerning. So this is a problem largely focused about young people. 4 out of 5 victims were men, and that's a trend that has remained steady, they say, for several years. All but one of the 8 fatal domestic violence victims were women, accounting for about 37% of the total number of female victims. The majority of victims were black, accounting for about 62% of the cases in 2023, and that has been a trend in Nashville since 2016 at least. For the first time in 7 years, Hispanic people surpassed white people as the second highest demographic of victims in 2023. While numbers have steadily remained under 13 this year, 21 people identified as Hispanic were counted among the victims. 16 victims were white, 2 were Asian or other nationalities. January was our most deadly month last year. There was 1 homicide every 43 hours in January. And more than 90% of the 2023's violent deaths were caused by gunfire. There were 7 cases involving a knife or a cutting instrument. 1 was the result of blunt force trauma. And as troubling as those numbers are, at least we're not Memphis. Oh, my goodness. From the Tennessee Star, Memphis had the highest murder rate of 2023 in comparison with 10 major cities identified as homicide hubs within the United States. The only Tennessee city tracked for the WirePoints report, Memphis had a murder rate of 63.9 homicides per 100,000 people. And a total of, I can understand why people are trying to get out of Memphis. A total of 397 homicides were reported in the city last year, up 38% from 2022. Memphis murder rate, talking about the rate, exceeded the murder rate of Chicago and Philadelphia, which saw 26 murders per 100,000 people. The city also fared worse than cities with a similar or lower population, with the murder rate in Memphis exceeding the murder rates of Baltimore, Detroit, and New Orleans. Wow. I mean, goodness. What's going on in Memphis? And they've already had one homicide so far in 2024. The nationally recognized spike in Memphis homicide comes as the city's police department struggles to recruit and retain police officers. In 2023, reported that a number of Memphis Police Department officers declined by 22.6%, with 2,499 officers reporting for duty in 2011 and just 1,895 in 2022. And the city has grown since then. It was then, you remember, it wasn't long ago, the Governor Bill Lee sent a bunch of state patrol to Memphis to try to bring the crime in that city under control. This story is troubling to me, and I never want to be someone who preaches at you, but I don't understand this, and I just the numbers really bother me. A total of 1,203 guns were stolen from vehicles in Nashville last year, according to the Metro Nashville Police Department. That's just in Davidson County. Now, that is down from 2022, but still, it's a shocking number of guns that were taken mostly from vehicles in Nashville last year. And when they get taken from vehicles, it is usually by young people who should not be having these guns, and young people are you want to do something to cut down on violent crime. The thing that you can do, the thing that you can do to stop it in really short order, is to lock up your gun and to not leave it in a car unlocked, where it can be taken and the car can be stolen. The car stolen. There's a lot. I mean, it seems like there's an awful lot of people, and I'll claim to be one of them, who are packing heat in their car each day. And so if you steal a car, there's a pretty good chance there's going to be a weapon in it, and the weapon is going to be taken and then used in a bad way. And so, again, I don't understand why it is that we, as gun owners, it's a right. Yes, it's right. With great rights come great responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities you have as a gun owner is to make sure your weapon is always secure. So, again, I don't want to preach at you, but that's a problem that has not gotten much better year after year after year. As long as we're talking about police departments in Nashville, yesterday reported that 10 officers with the Metro Nashville Police Department have been reassigned following the investigation into the November leak of the pages of the Manifesto written by Covenant school killer Audrey Elizabeth Hale. 10 officers from the threat section of the department's specialized investigation division will now transition out of that division next month as part of a wide-ranging reassignment. They never did figure out exactly who was responsible for leaking the documents, and they say it is not considered a disciplinary action, and no one is losing rank. But they never did find out exactly who leaked those documents. A number of individuals were interviewed cooperatively. Electronic devices were forensically examined. Attempts were made last month to interview a former Metro Nashville Police Department detective who possessed the image as part of his official's duties. That person declined and is no longer a member of law enforcement. The department does not have the ability to compel statements or cooperation from former employees, however. Guns, still much on the topic of guns. There is a new bill that's been filed for this coming legislative session that would make it for a person that is deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial. The moment you are deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial, you can no longer buy a gun in the state of Tennessee. This comes from House Majority Leader William Lambert, who's part of leadership in the House, and that means that it generally will have a very strong amount of support carried forth by leadership. It would make it a criminal offense for an individual who was judicially sent to a mental institution or declared incompetent by the court to attempt or purchase a firearm. The mental standing would come from an existing criminal proceeding. They would not be able to purchase a weapon. So in Nashville this year, 2 men were found not competent to stand trial and were alleged to have used a gun to shoot and kill 2 people. So they want to put a stop to that nonsense right away. This issue came up, you may remember, following the death of a Belmont University student who was just walking in a park and struck by a stray bullet. The person who was arrested has an intellectual disability, a language impairment, and was not able to participate in a trial when he was accused of shooting into a car in 2021 off the Dickerson Pike, where a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old were in the back seat. The case has been bound over from the General Sessions Court and is pending, but now comes a movement by the state legislature to do something about that. I mentioned the state legislature is getting ready to ramp up and get after it. There's a story in the Tennessean today about Governor Lee's ESA proposal, educational savings account, which, according to a poll we saw yesterday, has a great deal of support in the state of Tennessee, a great deal of support. And, 68% of those who were surveyed by the Beacon Center said that they liked the idea and would be very supportive of it. This story today says Governor Lee will not compromise on accountability in Tennessee's education system, but will not commit specifically to including measures like annual testing or the controversial third-grade retention law in his statewide school choice proposal. They are trying to work out the details of the education freedom scholarship legislation. The legislation is in development form, has not been posted. I have today learned that one of the concerns that will be raised about this ESA proposal is that there needs to be, according to some members of the state legislature who are very involved in this process, there must be some kind of requirement that it be used on citizens of Tennessee and not foreign immigrants who come to this country illegally. And that they're trying to figure out a way to make sure that that language can be done in a way that meets judicial scrutiny. And I want to end this segment about news in Tennessee on a very upbeat note, and I'm very happy to see this story. The Nashville Rescue Mission, as you know, our radio station has a long-running relationship with the Nashville Rescue Mission. We believe very wholeheartedly in what they do. And it helps the homeless people in this community get back on their feet in a faith-based formula. They don't take any tax dollars. And they have, grown over the years from being just a facility that worked to help homeless men to one that works for homeless men, women, and children in Nashville. Now we can report that the Nashville Rescue Mission has opened its new women's campus as of yesterday. A growing number of women and children in Nashville don't know where they're going to sleep at night. And because of this, the Nashville Rescue Mission just made room for more beds. Families moved into a brand new campus in Germantown on Thursday. It's been well planned and executed. Just seeing the looks on the faces of the women as they walk in the door, they say, wow, said Sam Sipple, Vice President of Development and Marketing for the Nashville Rescue Mission. 71,880 square foot building was transferred into a women's campus. It's got atmosphere, bigger, better from where we came, said to one of the guests. During the construction, women and kids stayed at the main campus where the men slept. Now there will be 2 separate campuses, and this is a good thing. They boarded buses with their belongings and were trucked to the brand new 348-bed shelter. It's almost twice as many beds, showers, classrooms, and double the number of family rooms. Last year, the mission helped over 1,800 women and nearly 440 kids. The project cost $24 million, but it was funded all by donations. And when you help us help them during our radiothon each year, you are part of the solution. So thank you very much. And what a wonderful asset this is for our community that really does some good, because they don't just give you, a meal and a place to sleep. They try to figure out what it is that put you there and what kind of things they can do to get you back as a productive, tax-paying member of society. And they have a great reputation for doing that. So congratulations to the Nashville Rescue Mission on your brand new shelter for women and children. Really, really happy to see that finally come to fruition. 22 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
A look at the economy from an advisor to President Biden's perspective. Crime here in Tennessee around sexual assault and an earthquake in Southern California today. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, there's Mac Morey there in the newsroom bringing us news and information at the top and the bottom of the hour. Yeah, I use that term. I mean, I know what it means, the top and the bottom of the hour. I mean, people, I guess today, who don't really look at clocks as round things with arms on them don't really know what that means.
What's that?
Yeah, the top of the hour is, 12 o'clock, and then the bottom of the hour is 30 minutes past the hour. But I realized there's a whole group of people, there's young people out there who don't know how to read a clock.
For sure.
That's true.
For sure.
I mean, they look at the time, it's on my phone. You don't have a round
3, 2, 5.
Yeah, that's right. And so anyway, I thought maybe I better explain it. But Mac Morey there, and then pushing the blinky buttons over there as he does so ably each day is Chris Webber, and I am your friend and radio buddy. And this is the drive for the 5th day of January 2024. Again, we're headed into it's Friday. We made it through this is sort of a shortened work week for us because we didn't, Monday was a holiday.
It sure doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I know. It seemed like it was just like, well, that was like a long time ago, Monday.
It was.
Yeah. But
it's about time for another vacation.
Who do you think you are, Brian Wilson? Come on. No, it's we're glad to be here and glad to be back. I want to remind everybody that we are planning to take the show on the road for the Iowa caucuses. I'm beginning to put together my my gear because we have this amazing technology that we have tested and it works. It's great. That allows me to turn the Red Radio Flyer, my pickup truck, into a mobile unit, broadcasting in full, top high fidelity sound,
right.
Literally while we're driving down the road if we want to. And we've done that, and it works great, and we're going to be taking that on the road. But we're going to be not only going to Iowa, and I'll arrive there on Saturday before the caucus, which is Monday the 15th, and then gathering some sound and talking to people all day Sunday so that I'll be able to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Iowa, the thinking of the people there, and sort of plant our flag for the beginning of our coverage of Campaign 2024, which is going to be interesting. And even though we look at it today and it looks like, well, I think I know how this is going to work out. I think I know who the Republican nominee is going to be, and I think I know who the Democrat. I'm not sure how this is all going to play out. There are, it seems to me, about a dozen different variables that could really change things. And the more I talk to people, especially about what they think is going to happen on the Democrat side of the equation, we saw President Biden today out there giving a campaign speech, but will he really be the nominee? Is sort of the question. He's one faceplant away from, having another disaster. And I don't know. There's a lot of people who look at the situation, including Donald Trump, who said he's planning on the possibility, very distinct possibility, that Biden is not the person he runs against. So we'll keep you all apprised of that. But it all kicks off on Monday from Des Moines, where I saw that in the next couple of days, temperatures will dip down to the single digits.
Yeah.
Whew. Little snow.
Maybe some snow, yeah.
Maybe some snow. We got a few days. I mean, it's what? It's 10 days away. 10 days away, so we'll keep a close eye on it. But I'm going with my insulated underwear and my heavy socks.
Maybe a toboggan.
Yeah, I don't normally wear a toboggan, but something. I'm telling you, that kind of cold will hurt you.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it'll hurt you in a hurry. So we'll see how that all goes.
I have a feeling you won't be spending all that much time outdoors, though.
Well, I'm going to try my best not to. I'm gonna run quickly from the truck to wherever it is warm.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever been to Iowa?
Never been to Iowa.
I have not. Only driven through.
You have driven. Well, you've driven through, so you've been there.
Yeah, I guess you could count it. Yeah, I've driven through.
Yeah, I will drive from here. I think I go through St. Louis, and then through southeastern. Which I've been told. I've not been to the southeastern part of the state, and I've been told that it's very different than the rest of the state, because the rest of the state, I'm told, is very flat. Well, I'm not told. I know it is because I've been there. I've seen it. It's flat. And it's everything has the same color. It's just sort of gray.
Gray.
In the winter, everything's just sort of gray.
Just kind of dead looking. Yeah.
Yeah, the sky, the clouds, and there's no blue sky. It's just gray, and very, very cold and very, very flat. But apparently, in the southeast part of the state, I'm told reliably, there are rolling hills, and it's really pretty.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
Who knew that?
Well, you'll have to keep us informed.
Yeah, and then of course they have some delicacies there. I forget what it is. It's like a pork. It's a fried piece of pork.
Oh, I'm in. That's all you got to say.
Which is supposed to be. It's supposed to be about the size of a hubcap.
Oh, like almost like a. What do they call those things? Like
a chicken fried steak.
Yeah, but it's a pork.
Ooh,
yeah,
tenderloin.
That sounds
tenderloin. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm on a diet, but I might have to try that. All right, it is now 30 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Time for the news.
.331, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 49 degrees on Music Row. Got a forecast and a traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. The Labor Department reports 216,000 jobs were added last month, beating expectations. It's a sign the job market remains strong. Stephen Portnoy spoke with a top economic advisor to President Biden.
White House economic advisor Jared Bernstein says employers keep hiring and wages are up. Beyond that,
we have seen actual lower costs, not just less inflation, lower costs or deflation in areas like milk and eggs, gas.
But housing costs haven't come down, nor have the costs of many other goods and services. Bernstein says Americans should not be rooting for deflation across the board.
You don't want to see typically an economy-wide deflation because to get that, you'd have to have a very deep recession.
Crime in Tennessee. Channel 4 says that a young man was arrested yesterday after he admitted to sexually assaulting a small child. The 4-year-old victim's mother accused 19-year-old Amarian Island of sexually assaulting her son. Officers reported the child had visible physical injuries and the child was transported to the hospital. Officers took Island into custody Wednesday night. He faces 4 aggravated child rape charges in addition to an aggravated sexual battery charge and remains in custody on a $125,000 bond. And in Southern California, they got shaken by a 4.1 magnitude earthquake earlier today. Alex Stone.
Its epicenter was in the mountains east of L.A., a pretty remote area, but the shaking was felt around places like Riverside, Anaheim, and here in L.A. This man owns a donut shop and says he and his customers definitely felt it, but it wasn't all that strong.
The movement of the ground was like, felt like I was like off the, like a surfing or something like that.
There are no reports of any damage or injuries.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me talk about the folks over at Busy Bee. If you awaken some morning and you find that your house is unusually cold and that aging heating system that you have is just it's on the fritz, and that happens this time of year, why don't you pick up the phone and call this number, 615-775-7833, and do what I do when I have a problem. I call the folks at Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. They'll come out. They'll try to get your problem up and running in very short order. And listen, the key to making sure that you don't wake up unexpectedly with no heat is to make sure that you're doing preventative maintenance on these systems, and that's what the Beehive Club is all about. To be a Beehive Club member, it starts at $99. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. 36 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. You're listening to The Drive. A reminder, you want to get your best thoughts together in the 4 o'clock hour, the 5 o'clock hour, 4:35 and 5:35. Not one, but 2 rounds of Fone Ur Farb Friday, where we open up the phone lines, and whatever is on your mind is open for discussion. Within reason, it is a family show, but, we want your most cogent thoughts, your most coherent arguments, your best questions, whatever it is you got. And maybe you want to, take umbrage with something you've heard. I mean, sometimes you hear me and you say, Wilson is a bonehead. He's wrong about that. And you want to take umbrage.
Well, I'd love to have that call. That would be very entertaining.
Yeah, you think
someone would just go, Wilson, you're a bonehead.
Well, I mean, people have said that in the past. But we love this segment. Normally when we open up the phone lines, it's for a very directed question. We want to stay on one topic. And I'm not like one of those guys who just opens up the phones and just goes to them sporadically. I want to have a conversation that's directed. But then I also want to give you the opportunity to just say whatever's on your mind. And that's what Fone Ur Farb Friday is all about. And it's one of my favorite things we do each week. So get your thoughts in order. That's at 4:35 and 5:35. Let's talk about the border because the border is in disorder, and it continues to be. There was a big interview last night on the Fox News channel. It was Brett Baier up against Alejandro Mayorkas. Who I've decided, I kept looking at him and said, who does he remind me of? And I've absolutely nailed it. I know who it is.
Who is it?
He reminds me of Dr. Evil. I mean, look at him.
He kind of does. Yeah,
he does. He
it.
looks just like he's got that eyebrow that's sort of, up there and sort of weird.
He just needs a white fuzzy cat.
Yeah. Throw me a frickin' bone here. I love
my frickin' sharks with frickin' lasers.
I asked for sharks with lasers. Is it too much to ask? I love that. That's one of my favorite characters he ever did. But anyway, he does look like Dr. Evil. But Brett Baier was trying to pin him down on exactly, what might be acceptable in these negotiations that are going on right now. As you know, we've talked about it endlessly here. The House of Representatives, the Republicans in the House who control that body, are saying nothing is going to happen. You're not going to get anything you want, Mr. President, until we do something about the border. And so there are negotiations going on between the administration, we are told, and some senators, a bipartisan group of senators, to see if they can come up with something that might be acceptable to the House. But Brett Baier tried to pin him down on that last night, and he dodged, he ducks. He never answers a question directly. Here's an example of what I'm talking about from last night's special report.
When you say that Republicans won't accept the extra funding, they have a problem with the funds being used to release and transport illegal immigrants around the country. So Congress is listening right now. Would you accept the extra funding on the condition that the funds could only be used for detention and removal, but not release into the country?
Brett, the funds are needed to provide the Department of Homeland Security with more Border Patrol agents. The funds are needed to provide the Department of Homeland Security with more technology. The funds are needed to provide our department with more detention space, to provide the Department of Justice with more immigration judges so justice can be administered more swiftly.
Well, he never answers the question, but I think the answer is no. So where are we then? Where is this thing going? I don't know. I have a story here from the Epoch Times where it sort of breaks down some of the things that Mayorkas said and brings us up to date on where these negotiations are. DHS Secretary admits over 70% of illegal immigrants are being released into the United States. Secretary of Department of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, a.k.a. Dr. Evil, who is facing looming impeachment hearings in Congress related to the border crisis, said Thursday that over 70% of illegal immigrants are being released into U.S. communities after an initial arrest. He made the remarks in Fox News special report, as we told you. He replied that there are well more than 1 million a year while blaming an immigration system that needs fixing because it's so fundamentally broken. Boy, they love to throw that line out there. Well, it's been broken for decades. It wasn't so broken before Joe Biden arrived on the scene. Mayorkas was asked if he'd find it surprising to hear that U.S. Customs and Border Patrol told they were releasing 70% of illegal immigrants crossing the border. He acknowledged that it sounds about right. It would not surprise me at all. I know the data. I will tell you, when individuals are released, they are released into immigration enforcement proceedings. They are on alternatives to detention. And we have returned or removed a record number of individuals. We are enforcing the laws that Congress has passed. But then, are you really? No, not really. So what is the answer to this standoff between the Biden administration and Republicans with regard to the border? From thehill.com, 5 things to know about the border bill at the heart of the GOP shutdown threats. These stories. 6 takeaways, 5 important points. Those sort of irritate me, but it does sort of break it down in an interesting way. Here's what H.R. 2 would do. This is the Republican bill in the House. It would purge the U.S. workforce of undocumented workers. I didn't know there were any. How does that work? Well, apparently they say they want to use the E-Verify system to do that so that there are no undocumented workers working for the federal government. They want to slash asylum. Listen to this. Under existing laws, immigrants who can make a credible claim of being a refugee can stay in the U.S. while that claim is assessed, and if granted asylum, they are allowed to stay. Republicans have long argued this system suffers from rampant abuse, and they have argued that the Biden administration asylum policies are tantamount to an open invitation to migrants. You see, it's how they interpret that credible claim. H.R. 2 makes it far harder for migrants to claim asylum and makes the process far more serious for those able to stay long enough for that claim to be processed. The bill denies people the ability to claim asylum unless the Customs and Border Protection officer who processes them believes their ultimate case would more than likely not be accepted, adds a $50 fee to make an asylum claim, and bars migrants from making an asylum claim anywhere but at an official port of entry. That's pretty interesting. When the bill passed the House, co-author Tom McClintock, Republican of California, told reporters it was necessary to stem a tide of horrors. He pointed to classrooms packed with non-English speaking students, hospitals flooded with illegals demanding uncompensated care, violent criminal cartels, and gangs introduced into our communities. By the way, you may think, well, those are problems in other places. No, this is the same problem we have right here in our own backyard. This is happening in Tennessee, and it's a result of the border crisis. Our schools are packed with young people who are here because of, their parents or whoever it was that brought them across the border have been allowed to come into this country to ostensibly apply for asylum. Though, we really know that about when they finally get adjudicated, a great number of these asylum claims are denied. But these asylum claims, the way it's going right now with the backlog, some of these claims will not be processed for 7 years or 8 years or even more. It's a big scam. The Republicans want to build more walls. They want 900 miles along the 2,000-mile border with Mexico. And that will be a real sticking point with the Biden administration, is they don't want to build any walls. Would offer $110 million a year to the border forces being set up by states, including Texas, to do some of this work. And it would end protections for migrant children. H.R. 2 would roll back many protections for minors created under the Flores settlement, which resulted from a 1993 court case and has since guided federal immigration law. It would require DHS to reestablish family detention and once again allow families with children to be detained indefinitely. And then it will not address legal immigration. because what the Democrats want and what the Republicans will be dead set against is a pathway to citizenship for people who came to this country under either false pretenses or illegally. I mean, how do you grant citizenship to someone whose first act was to violate U.S. law? I just don't understand how you can do that. And Republicans are right to stand their ground on it. There is another development in this battle between Greg Abbott and the city of New York. You know, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, keeps sending busload after busload after busload of immigrants to New York City, which is a sanctuary city. And they like to blame Abbott for all of the problems, but I think basically the way I can do the math, it seems to me Abbott is responsible for about 10% of the problem, but he's creating a public relations nightmare for the city of New York because, people are finding out about what's going on because of Greg Abbott and the buses that keep showing up. So the city of New York said, we've had enough of Greg Abbott. So if you have if a bus comes into New York City carrying migrants, we will then bring lawsuits against the bus companies. And so that was their threat. And so the bus companies went to Governor Abbott and said, well, we can't do this anymore. So Abbott's idea was, well, okay, we'll just fly some. We'll fly some in. So they flew a bunch into Chicago O'Hare. And then they came up with a workaround in New York City. They sent buses, but they sent buses to nearby New Jersey and then had the migrants get on the train. They're in there like 20 minutes from downtown, midtown Manhattan. So they got around it. They're not going into the state of New Are ultimately, that's their ultimate destination. So this story from the Epoch Times again, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has denounced a baseless multi-million-dollar lawsuit filed by New York City Mayor Eric Adams against charter bus companies transporting illegal immigrants to New York City, according to the legal challenge. They say that the legal challenge is invalid. The lawsuit is baseless, deserves to be sanctioned, the Republican governor wrote on X, formerly Twitter. It's clear that Mayor Adams knows nothing about the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution or about the constitutional right to travel that has been recognized by the U.S. Supreme Court. Every migrant bused or flown to New York City did so voluntarily after having been authorized by the Biden administration to remain in the United States. As such, they have the constitutional authority to travel across the country, and that Mayor Adams is interfering with that constitutional right. If the mayor persists in his lawsuit, he may be held legally accountable for the violations. The comments by the governor of the Lone Star State came after Democrat Mayor Adams unveiled a lawsuit against 17 charter bus and transportation companies used by Texas to send immigrants to the city. There's a bunch of different bus companies. According to the lawsuit, the 17 companies knowingly implemented Governor Abbott's publicly articulated plan, and they say it's creating mayhem in New York City. Oh, well, you said you were a sanctuary city, did you not? I mean, as I recall, they said they were a sanctuary city, which means that you will provide sanctuary for people who are looking for a home. New York City is seeking $708 million in compensation in the lawsuit. It's not going to go anywhere. Texas has sent about 33,600 immigrants to New York City since August of 2022 as part of Operation Lone Star. But that's a drop in the bucket to the actual number of illegal migrants who have ended up in New York City. I think it's about 10% roughly. So, they should be angry not at Governor Abbott, but at the Biden policies. But, they can't do that because if they can't criticize another Democrat, it's the Democrats who are responsible for this problem. And so, if you really want to stop 90% of what's happening, maybe you should pick up the phone to the White House, have a conversation with the current president of the United States. It's his policy. He's the one carrying it out. And he's the one causing the problem, not Governor Abbott to the largest degree. I mean, he may be using it for a public relations point, and he's every right to do so. But the real problem comes from the Biden administration, not from the state of Texas. 52 minutes past the hour now at 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Murder rate is down in the United States, but hear what other crime the FBI is now focused on. A rise in RSV cases around the United States, especially in Tennessee. Violence in Baghdad, a missing woman in the volunteer state, and a dog in Pittsburgh eats a very expensive meal. Those stories at 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, it is 55 minutes now past the hour. Listen, just one other thing from that interview that Brett Baird did with Mayorkas. It has brought forth an examination of past things that have been said about immigration, specifically from the White House podium in the press room, where it seems that Karine Jean-Pierre, I mean, she just comes out there and just spits out the most unbelievable stuff. And it's like they don't know that there's a Wayback Machine. In May, Karine Jean-Pierre said the following.
The claims that CBP is allowing or encouraging mass release of migrants and is just categorically false. That is not what's occurring. That is not what's happening.
Would it be that was what she said in May. Last night, here's what Mayorkas said.
Would it surprise you to hear that CBP sources say that currently they are releasing more than 70% of the migrants crossing every day, and sometimes more than that number, higher than 70%? Would that surprise you?
It would not surprise me at all. I know the data.
So Karine Jean-Pierre says it's not happening. Mayorkas admits that it is happening. Left hand, right hand should get together. Get your story straight. Get your story straight. Speaking of the economy, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, did an interview, and she says that, you're not going to believe this, but she thinks that people are really happy with the state of the Biden economy.
They're spending in ways that suggest they're happy with their financial circumstances. We're seeing a huge number of new businesses being formed, that an investment in American businesses that suggests confidence in the future of the economy. I think those are all good signs.
Yeah, good signs. Don't worry, there's nothing to see here, except that most people are out there, struggling to make ends meet because costs have gone up dramatically since Joe Biden took office. But she says, no, people are happy with the economy. You hold on to that one, Janet, and see how that plays out for you in the coming election. She says that anybody who's pessimistic, well, you're just wrong. If you're pessimistic about the economy, well, you're just wrong.
Well, there has been a lot of pessimism about the economy that's really proven unwarranted.
Yeah, she knows, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury, knows better than you about the state of how it is out here. And if you are pessimistic, well, that's just simply unwarranted. You simply aren't dealing with the facts. The facts may be in your house that you're having a hard time putting food on the table or keeping a roof over your head or clothes on your back. But if that's pessimistic, then you are just unwarranted in having that opinion. Payroll data came out today. U.S. payrolls increased by 216,000 in December, which is a bit better than expected. December's job report showed employers added 216,000 positions, while the unemployment rate still held steady at 3.7. I'm not real clear on whether that's good or bad, because it seems to me if the jobs situation is strong and you need the economy to be somewhat weakened, cooler, before you can lower interest rates, then maybe this is not particularly good news. Economists surveyed by the Dow Jones had been looking for payrolls to be about 170,000, and they thought that the unemployment rate might nudge up to about 3.8. Turns out they were not right. A more encompassing unemployment measure that includes discouraged workers and those holding part-time jobs for economic reasons edged higher to 7.1%. That increase in the real employment rate came as the household survey used to calculate the unemployment rate showed a decline in job holders of 683,000, maybe a better real assessment of what's going on. There are lies, there are damned lies, and then there are statistics and numbers. So you can make these numbers say whatever you want to say. But real quick, taking a look at the market, Dow Jones Industrials ended the day up 25, S&P up 9, the NASDAQ was up 13. All screens are green, but not by much. This brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Learn more about all the things they can do for you by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 59 past the hour.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 48 degrees right now in Nashville. Looking like the weekend could be a little wet, but it'll stay cool as well. Traffic and a complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. While the FBI reports the number of murders is down 6% across the country, it's now focused on a new threat that's putting public officials at risk. Andy Field with details from Washington.
Attorney General Merrick Garland addressing law enforcement officials on fighting violent crime, saying there's a spike in people saying they want to harm public servants, including election workers, teachers, reporters, and politicians.
These threats of violence are unacceptable. They threaten the fabric of our democracy.
The Attorney General mentioning increased security fears for many public officials.
RSV cases in Tennessee. News 2 reports that Cookeville Regional Medical Center is now not going to let anyone 16 or under, along with anyone showing signs of visiting patients at the hospital. Dr. Mark Peace at CRMC says that Tennessee is, quote, about as densely infected as you can be, adding that COVID-19 hospitalizations have spiked around 60% in the last 2 weeks. CRMC said there will be special exceptions for the current restrictions, including siblings of newborns in the birthing center. The U.S. military has confirmed they've carried out its own airstrike in Baghdad, killing an Iran-backed militia leader responsible for recent attacks on American personnel. Here's Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh today.
We've always said this from the very beginning, and it doesn't just pertain to what's happening in the Middle East, but all around the world. We always reserve the right to protect our forces, to protect our people wherever they are stationed. And yesterday, what you saw the U.S. military do is take precise action against a known terrorist leader that has been one of the orchestrators of attacks against our forces in Iraq and Syria.
A missing woman in Tennessee. A silver alert has now been issued for a missing Nashville woman, 76-year-old Jackie Glenn. Glenn was last seen on the new year, January 1st, at her Abbott Martin Road home. She drives a black 2010 Toyota RAV4 SUV with Tennessee license plate 224BFCY. Nashville police say she has mobility issues. If you see her, you're urged to call police. And in Pittsburgh, a dog had a very expensive meal. His owners are now the ones who are paying. Dave Packer.
The workers building a new fence wanted to be paid in cash, so Clayton and Carrie Law went to the bank, withdrew $4,000 and put it on the counter. Clayton came back a half hour later. Their dog Cecil had eaten about $2,000 and tore up the rest.
It's kind of like a WTF moment where, like, I don't understand what, like, it didn't seem real.
The torn up money was easier to recover.
That's another $50.
The tougher job gathering all of their dogs' deposits in the yard and taping the cash back together.
We had to just kind of like remove from his number.
Yep, $3,500 recovered so far.
Whew, that would not be fun. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 5 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair on this Friday, January 5th. We're glad that you're with us on this day. We're glad that we're with us anytime that you can join us. We love having you here as part of our program. And remember, today we have participation radio today. Wow, I'm a broadcast professional. Participation radio today with not one but two exciting editions of Fone Ur Farb Friday. 4:35 is the first round, so get your cogent, coherent thoughts together. We love first-time callers. You can't lurk out there and just take. You've got to give back at some point. So we love to have you call in as well. Again, so I want to see full phone bards today.
Only if they're, what'd you call them? Cogent?
Cogent.
Yeah.
Coherent.
I don't know what that means. I'll go look it up and get back to you.
Concise is good. And well-mannered.
Yeah, that helps. Be nice.
I'm the only one around here who's not supposed to be well-mannered. I want to do a 2024 update because we're just 10 days away from the Iowa caucuses. And by the way, again, we'll be coming to you live from Des Moines, which I think we can all agree is sort of one of the real outstanding cities of the Midwest. I can't think of another city that's more outstanding than Des Moines.
Okay.
In the Midwest. So one of the things that I think a lot of people are now starting to focus on, because, it's going to be interesting to see whether there's anything at all that ruffles Donald Trump on the way to securing the nomination on the Republican side of the equation. But, there's a lot of things to look at, like who might his running mate be? And to that end, the Epic Times has a great story called 14 Potential Running Mates for Trump, including a couple of wildcat choices. And I thought it was interesting. I wondered what you thought. So I'll run through this list. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well at some point. U.S. Senator Tim Scott, they say, might be one of the best picks for Trump. For several reasons, the South Carolina lawmaker could bolster President Trump's candidacy more than many of the other names that have been proposed in recent months. He's passionate about sharing his religious faith, endearing him to evangelical Christians, an important voting bloc that also found initially Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence appealing. He's the only black Republican senator in Congress. He might draw some more black voters into the fold, a group that has traditionally voted for Democrats but has recently been shifting toward President Trump and other Republicans. He delivers powerful speeches, tempered by a Southern gentlemanlike, more genteel demeanor. Comes off young and vigorous. So, while campaigning for the presidency earlier this year, Mr. Scott largely avoided attacking President Trump, and the former president, known for aiming barbs at his opponents, has praised Mr. Scott in the past. Number 2 on their list is Nikki Haley. I don't know about this one. Ms. Haley's former gubernatorial and foreign policy experience, along with her status as a female and the daughter of immigrants from India, make her a logical pick, at least on paper. But they go a little deeper here. Some people in the Trump world have looked at that rather frostily. On December 23rd, there were stories circulating. Trump ally Roger Stones said the United States has never had a VP named Bird Brain and never will. Of course, that's Trump's nickname for Nikki Haley. But I will tell you this, Nikki Haley, Trump has had a history of using little nicknames, and then, if it's to his need, he will then bring them into the fold, even after he's given them sort of a demeaning nickname. So I don't know that disqualifies her, but a lot of people in the Trump world say it really cannot be Nikki Haley. They point to entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, 37 years old, a millionaire millennial. He lacks experience, but he has energy, intelligence, and courage to the table. And I think I have heard Trump say, positive things about Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy has never attacked the former president. But he has gone after Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel and has called for her resignation. Besides being a fan favorite in 2 polls, Ramaswamy ranks highly among some political betting sites as oddchecker.com. And he, like Miss Haley, was born to parents who immigrated from India, a background that could appeal to ethnic minorities if President Trump were to choose him as a running mate. The one that sort of speaks to me and the one that I sort of agree with as a logical choice, a very attractive candidate, Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, 52 years old, has risen to prominence during the past several years, even though her state has next to zero gravitational pull in U.S. politics. I mean, she doesn't bring a lot of electoral college votes from her state at South Dakota, but you know, she's been out there trying to build her visibility with a bunch of commercials that have run about the state of South Dakota and why you should move there. And, you know, and she makes a pretty good-looking plumber in those things. She served in Congress for 6 years, understands the D.C. Beltway, served on the Armed Services Committee. She's thought of, I think, highly in the Trump world. Trump Gnome 24 has been briefly flashed on video screens at rallies, and such speculation is renewed because Gnome is set to campaign for the former president in Iowa during his pre-caucus blitz. Elected in 2018 as South Dakota's first female governor, she won re-election with the largest vote total in the history of the South Dakota, in the entire state, history of the state. So I think that's then interesting. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, not so much. Doug who? I think is that. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has been out on the campaign trail, and he's been sharpening his attacks against the former president. But again, you know, if it meets the need, and by the way, Florida, you can't have 2 people from the same state. So Trump would probably, somebody would have to relocate. Trump would have to then claim his residence to be someplace other than Florida, I think. That's my understanding. But, you know, that's a name that has been flown out there. Former HUD Secretary Dr. Ben Carson, 72 years old, ran against Trump in 2016. Matt Schlapp of the Conservative Political Action Conference said, I think Ben Carson for vice president would be a dynamic relationship. I don't know. The words that come to my mind when I think of Ben Carson, I think bright, brilliant, not dynamic, but one way or the other. That's a name that's being tossed out there. How about this one? Arkansas Governor Huckabee Sanders, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's the first female governor of her state. She began her term in office in January of 2023. She doesn't have the broader political experience, but she worked in the Trump administration, the first one, and I think left on good terms. Her dad is still on very good terms with the former president. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, interesting choice, 60 years old, served as CIA director and then Secretary of State, and has remained in good favor with the former president. U.S. Representative Elise Stefanik, youngest congresswoman to hold the office when she's elected in 2014, now 39, gained a lot of national attention and political clout, served as the House Republican Conference chair, the 3rd most powerful position in the chamber. So she would have good relationships with Capitol Hill. And, you know, I think she's pretty sharp. They point to U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, 49-year-old. Donald Trump likes her. She became increasingly active in politics, decided to run for Congress in 2019. She won. She has endeared herself to MAGA supporters and made an indelible impression. I don't know. It seems like to me, as much as I like a lot of things that she does, sort of an unpredictable wild card, loose cannon, maybe, perhaps, I'm not sure. So how about some wild cards? You ready? Tucker Carlson. 54 years old, a fan favorite for President Trump's running mate, especially among the American Fest audience, where he was the top vote getter at 35%. Analysts have said he's an unlikely choice, partly because he has no prior political experience, and partly because he stated it's hard to envision himself in such a role. He's been working on other projects, establishing his own network. That's an interesting. How about this as a wild card? Independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's polling about 22% in national polls. He's a political well, I don't know that he's a political newcomer, but carries clout because of his family storied history in U.S. politics. He is the son of Senator Robert F. Kennedy Jr., nephew of President John F. Kennedy and Ted Kennedy, all of whom now deceased. He might be somebody that would, I don't know, if you were trying to bring in some of the people in the middle, because a lot of people in the middle really do seem to like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kerry Lake might be somebody that is. I think that's sort of interesting. Republican members of Congress who have been mentioned as possible running mates. Listen to this list: Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio. I don't imagine he would take it. Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, J.D. Vance of Ohio, Josh Hawley, a Republican of Missouri, Representatives Byron Donalds, that would be an interesting choice, Wesley Hunt, Republican of Texas, and Nancy Mace, Republican of North Carolina. Tulsi Gabbard, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, or Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Suarez and Rubio had sought the presidency with those Hispanic, a trait that could motivate more voters for that ethnicity. That'd be pretty interesting. There's some interesting names in all of that. Did anything out of that, Chris, did it catch your attention? Anything that you said, wow, that's one I hadn't thought about?
Well, I think the most out there one, if you will, would be Tucker Carlson. I can't see that one ever happening.
I don't know. It would be interesting. Hey. I mean, he's bombastic and he's outspoken like Trump.
Yeah,
and they like each other a lot, apparently.
I think the Kennedy pick would also be a very interesting choice because, like you said, he's polling fairly decently for one of those kind of outsider candidates.
Third-party outsider candidate, yeah, that's right. So,
could he possibly help Trump out and bring some voters who wouldn't normally vote for Trump? It's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting point because, I mean, look, the way it looks right now, Trump is leading in a lot of the polls, but not by much, and it's a long way. And the Democrats haven't even started their attacks on Trump yet. So those polls will tighten as we go forward. So if you could bring in, somebody who's already garnering 20% of the vote, wow. Although I think that his greater value to Trump is as a spoiler for Biden.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of
good point.
Yeah, interesting.
Hey, real quick, Brian, just button in with some breaking news. The U.S. Supreme Court has decided to agree to weigh in on whether Trump can be kicked off the ballot in Colorado.
There you go. Well, okay, so they're going to take the case.
Yep.
And I would imagine they're going to take it up in very short order on an expedited basis. I mean, this stuff is crazy. I was just going to get into this.
Arguments will be held in early February.
Yep, they're going to get to it pretty quick. For the Supreme Court, that's pretty quick. Arguments, which means they'll be filing their briefs well before then, so that arguments can take place in February. Wow. I was going to mention that there's a couple of cases like that. In Wyoming, a federal judge has rejected a motion that called for former President Donald Trump to be removed under this argument regarding the 14th Amendment. And the judge shut it down. But now, apparently, there's yet another one being filed against him in the state of Massachusetts. And we know, the state of Massachusetts, very blue, free speech for people, the same organization that has pushed for 14th Amendment challenges in Minnesota, Michigan, Oregon, and Illinois, has now filed the same thing in Massachusetts. It makes the same arguments as the Colorado case. And the main case, which have knocked Trump off the state's primary ballots pending legal appeals. So now that we have this news that the high court is going to take up this matter, that's really fascinating. And I think it's not surprising. Trump did appeal to the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court needs to put this one to rest. I'm not a lawyer, but I have read virtually every legal analysis that I can find out there by people who are really good constitutional lawyers. And it's widely expected that the Supreme Court will make short order of this and tell them, no, you can't take somebody off the ballot as an insurrectionist when they haven't been charged with being an insurrectionist. They've never been charged. They've never been tried. So how can you just make a unilateral decision? Well, I think he's an insurrectionist, so I don't want him on the ballot. And I don't think that's going to hold legal water at all. There are other more interesting arguments and parts and facets to that diamond. But the high court will be looking to just get it resolved and off its plate. So I think the easiest thing for them to do is say, well, obviously, you can't do this if he's never been charged, never been any cases brought against him. So, move along. And then, that just shuts it down. And look, I just can't imagine. I'll be shocked, stunned, and amazed if the high court does anything other than brush that one back. And that's going to be interesting to watch. Thanks for that breaking news. We'll stay on top of that throughout the show. Breaking news changes everything here on Super Talk 99.7. 22 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. King & Associate Insurance in Brentwood, 25 years in the business as an independent agency, which is a good thing. First of all, because they're an independent agency, they will take care of you. They will take care of you as a customer. If you've ever tried to buy insurance on the internet, you find out that if you've got a problem, you're on the phone for 2-3 hours trying to get an answer, right? But if you call their number, 615-329-8121, you'll get an actual person who will answer your questions or get you to someone who can. Now, that's worth it right there. But the other thing about being an independent agency is that they can choose through a whole bunch of different policy options. They look at what your individual needs are, and they can go out there and find the right policy that really meets your needs, and that gives you more bang for your insurance dollar. And that's what you want, right? You want bang for your buck. And that's what they can give you. They're not relegated to just taking one product and taking that square peg and trying to shove it into a round hole. They are the kings also of multi-policy discounting. They know how to bundle that stuff up and save you money, and there can be huge savings, 20, 25, 30, 35%. So get your royal review with King & Associates Insurance. Log into tkinginsurance.com. That's tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance & Associates, royal treatment and great rates.
The U.S. Supreme Court to decide whether or not former President Trump can be held off the 2024 presidential ballot in Colorado. New possible legislation here in Tennessee. And today's Money News. Those stories at the bottom of the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, it is 26 minutes past the hour. This is a story that is going to be extremely controversial, and it's going to hack some people off. But I'm just bringing it to you. A December report in the New England Journal of Medicine, Dr. David A. Gorelick and others show that cannabis-related mental health problems are rising rapidly nationwide in conjunction with the increasing legalization of the drug. The doctor reports that almost 20% of those aged 12 and older used marijuana in 2021, with 16 million people suffering from cannabis use disorder, which is the inability to stop taking the drug even as it causes health and social problems. Almost half of those addicts suffer from mental health illnesses such as, are you ready for this laundry list of things? Yeah, everybody says, oh, it mellows you out. Well, according to this report, it often causes anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, hallucinatory delirium, and suicidality. In other words, you're more prone to become a victim of suicide, and schizophrenia. Another report, this comes from the capital region of Denmark, showed that among men aged 21 to 30, as many as 30% of cases of schizophrenia among men aged 20 to 30 might have been prevented by averting cannabis use disorder. This isn't to say that many schizophrenics smoke weed. The study says marijuana often triggers schizophrenia, which otherwise would not develop at all. Oh, there's more. There are recent studies by other entirely reputable outlets have shown that heavy marijuana use often can cause permanent brain damage, that legalization has actually increased the vast illicit market for the drug, and a rise in criminal violence, and that it really does serve as a gateway to higher opioid use and mortality. So even at the genetic level, marijuana can be measurably dangerous. The story concludes by saying, this is, by the way, in the Washington Examiner, and you can find a link to it on urfarb.com. It is far from a nearly harmless substance that popular culture believes it is. It has deleterious health effects. They're numerous, serious, and indisputable, which is why they say, and for extremely targeted limited use under a doctor's supervision to treat adverse effects of dreaded ailments such as cancer, marijuana should be illegal at both state and federal levels. And while alternative sentencing can be a worthwhile idea for minor users, marijuana offenses definitely should be more heavily prosecuted. Its heavy use or sale, moreover, should be criminally punished, is the conclusion of this report. Now, that goes against everything that's happening in the country. I think right now, roughly, I think, Chris, the last time we checked, about half of the states have legalized marijuana in some form, shape, or fashion.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I've heard this thing about anxiety for some time now. It's not a new thing, but they're getting some pretty interesting studies that show it really can cause depression, anxiety, and other kinds of things. And also now the new one that's being added is schizophrenia.
I think we should consult Willie Nelson, see how he feels about that.
As far as I know, Willie exhibits none of those things.
None of them, no.
I've never seen Willie look anxious one moment in his life. No. It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
"30 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 47 degrees, a cloudy day on Music Row. We'll let you know what that weekend weather forecast looks like. Maybe some rain in there. Traffic report just ahead as well, 5 minutes. Some breaking news. The Supreme Court has decided today that they will weigh in on whether or not Donald Trump can be kept off of the Colorado ballot due to his actions leading up to the January 6th Capitol riot. Arguments are going to be held in early February. The Supreme Court is a Republican majority, 6-3. Here in Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee says he plans to update Tennessee law to include protections for the music industry from the misuse of artificial intelligence. Lee will be joined by legislative leaders, artists, songwriters, and music industry stakeholders in Nashville on Wednesday to make it official. And now over to our Money News report. Daria Albinger lets us know what happened today on Wall Street.
Stocks closed higher for the day, but lower for the week. The Dow closed up 26 points. The Nasdaq rose 14, and the S&P added 9 for the session. The markets were listless following reports that workers are getting bigger raises, but inflation continues to cool down, and this snaps a winning streak that lasted almost the last 2 months of 2023. The nation's employers added 216,000 jobs last month, far more than the 173,000 analysts had expected. It's also the latest sign that the U.S. labor market remains robust, even with sharply higher interest rates. Unemployment was unchanged at 3.7%. That makes almost 2 years now that the jobless rate has come in below 4%. The Fed's paying close attention to hiring as it tries to bring inflation to the 2% target rate. Another report shows that growth in the service business sector slowed.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
You know, there's a lot of diagnoses out there and a pill for just about everything, but not all those diagnoses are accurate and not all pills are good for you. When you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, you should get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair for a diagnosis, why don't you go to Eurofix? It can only save your vehicle's life, but could actually save you from a lot of losing a lot of money. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. No high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And at Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Locations: Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now their newest facility in Mount Juliet, right across the street from the Dairy Queen. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you. 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock, and a little birdie just told me that one of our young listeners is just celebrated a birthday. So we want to say happy birthday, although we're a day late, to Savannah, who is a regular listener to this program at the age of 6 years old.
Nice.
Savannah, I hope you had a great birthday and a great coming year. It won't be long before you'll be celebrating that 7th birthday. All right, listen, it's time for that thing we like to do about this time each Friday, a little thing we call Fone Ur Farb Friday. Yeah, what are you thinking? What's on your mind today? 615-737-9986. Listen, maybe you have a bee in your bonnet, maybe you have a burr in your saddle, maybe you have what is it? A bug in a place. I only do this every week. A bug in a place where we hope you never, ever really have a bug. Hey. So get on the phone and express yourself. Step up on our 100,000-watt soapbox and tell us what's on your mind. Maybe you want to take umbrage. Maybe you got a question. Maybe you want to try to stump the chump. Whatever it is, this is your chance to participate at 615-737-9986. Let's start with Mr. Bill. Is calling in from Hendersonville. I love that because it rhymes. Mr. Bill from Hendersonville. What's on your mind today, Mr. Bill?
Mr. Bill. Brian, you know you're one of my favorite radio personalities, but Wilson, I think you're a bonehead.
Okay.
Because, and I want to take umbrage because you say that Cringe John Pierre is wrong when she says the immigration system is broken, but she is right, and I want to tell you why she's right.
Okay.
She is right because Joe, Sleepy Joe, Slow Joe, has broken our immigration system. It was working just fine under President Trump. But the fact that he's let 70 million undocumented into our country, and look at the numbers, they just continue to increase every month.
Yep.
And that's the reason it's broken.
Listen, I appreciate, and I know you're just playing around by calling me a bonehead, because you don't really think I'm a bonehead. But anyway, one way or the other, she says that, where she's wrong is when she says that it's been broken for decades, because it hasn't been broken for decades. It was just fine until a certain president took the oath of office. But Mr. Bill from Hendersonville, thank you so much for the call. Calvin in Lebanon, you're up next on the drive. What's on your mind there, Calvin?
Hey, Brian, I've been meaning to call and ask you this, and I don't want to sound like I'm heartless to the illegals, because given the opportunity, if I was coming from where they was coming from, I'd be here too. I blame the lawmakers, obviously, but I was just going to ask you, are we stuck with them if the right person gets in, or can you round them up and start sending them back? Are we stuck? Or
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Let's assume that President Trump gets reelected, and he says we're going to start cracking down on the people who are here illegally, and we're going to start, adjudicating these cases at a greater rate. How do you find them? I mean, there are millions. And, they have not been particularly good about checking in with the folks over at Homeland Security to let them know where they are. And their court dates are not they're like 7 years away, some of them. So, I think we might be stuck with some of them. But, I mean, the Trump administration could, if they were to become the next administration, they could, make the situation better. But it gets better almost immediately just the moment you shut down the border the way it was before and enforce the laws the way they were meant to be enforced. But, yeah, unfortunately, I think once they're in, they sort of evaporate into the fabric of America, and it's hard to track them down. Calvin, thanks for the call. Bill in Manchester, you're up next on the drive. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
I'm talking about the person who'll be his vice presidential candidate.
We were talking earlier about President Trump, former President Trump, and who might his running mate be. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I'm one of those people who would love to see Tucker Carlson for two reasons. Number one, he has no political experience, which makes that a plus for me.
Yeah.
He's not part of the swamp. And he thinks just like Trump. So if anything were to happen to Trump, we got a guy that thinks just like him. But when you said that a lot of the people, the 22% are going to vote for Kennedy, he would get that. I think a lot of the people who are voting for Kennedy is because they don't want Trump to be president, so they're going to an alternative. They don't like Biden, and they don't like Trump. So I'll see what you have to say about that and hang out.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I've seen polls that suggest that if that Kennedy takes more from Biden than he does from Trump. And so that would suggest to me that if he stays in the race, he probably hurts Biden more and serves as a spoiler. Because, I mean, there have been a lot of surveys asking that question, and it seems to suggest the more names you add, Kennedy and maybe Manchin or whoever ends up running, all these names, that when you add those in there, Trump does fine, but Biden loses. So I think Kennedy's would, if he remains a third-party candidate, would probably hurt Biden more than he would hurt Trump. Thanks for the call, Bill. Stephen in Franklin, you're on the drive with Brian. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Brian. Love your show.
Thank you.
I don't want the Republicans to lower their standards, but that being said, if Biden is the nominee, is it feasible, possible for a Republican to take Biden off the ticket, just like exactly what they're trying to do to Trump? I'm just wondering.
Well, I think number one, it's not a great strategy for anybody to do it on one side or the other. But what would be the thing that you would say disqualifies him from running?
Well, he's broken every law. I mean, every day he gets up out of bed, he breaks a law. I mean, if this man can't be impeached, who can't?
Well, listen, I think he's committed impeachable offenses just by the way he's handled the border situation. But you got to go through that process. And I got to tell you, the way that process would work is even if he was to be impeached by the House, the Senate is controlled by the Democrats. It would not be convicted. So it's not really going to go anywhere. To me, going down that pathway, if we say that you can't kick Trump out because he's never been charged or tried on a charge of insurrection, then the same logic holds true for Biden. He's never been impeached, and you have to have a conviction before that would stick. So I don't think it's going to happen. Honestly, I just don't like the idea of anybody in a court of law telling the Americans who they have the right to vote for and who they don't have the right for. So I'm hoping that argument just gets destroyed by the Supreme Court, and I think it will. Danny in Lebanon is up next. Danny, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the drive.
Good afternoon, Brian. Totally off subject. I'd like to see bingo, the game, legalized in Tennessee, seeing that they have online gambling and everything else, just for the simple reason it would give people something to do other than hang out in bars. It's cheap, fun to do, and people could raise money on it, like veterans, fire stations. I just think it'd be a great idea and something to do.
Is bingo not legal in this? I did not know that it wasn't legal.
Absolutely not. No, not in Tennessee. It's not. Believe it or not, you got to go to Kentucky to play bingo. Isn't that crazy? That's what I'm saying. I'm dead serious. Dead serious. Illegal. Everything else is legal. Why not bingo?
Yep.
It's cheaper and it's more entertainment.
I was in Colorado one time on vacation, and I won a fishing rod playing bingo.
Well, I'll tell you, I used to play it a lot when I was younger in New York, and like I said, it's inexpensive and entertaining, and they have all kinds of other gambling here.
Yeah, they sure do, don't they? Yeah. All right. Good point, Danny. All right, thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it. Let's see. Oh, this is a good group here today. Kelly and Bethpage, you're up on with the drive with Brian. What's on your mind today, Kelly?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I just wanted to weigh in on the VP, and I've been thinking this for a while, but I think Mike Huckabee would be a fantastic choice. I think, one, that he's steadfast for God and country. Two, I don't think he's probably got a lot of skeletons in his closet. I think he's got the credentials, and I think he understands the camera and the media just like Trump does. What do you think about him?
I've always liked Mike Huckabee. I think he's a great communicator. He has a great way of taking very complex ideas, sort of almost the way he describes and the way he interacts with people is almost Reagan-esque. And I've always liked him a lot. Maybe you though would you want to go maybe with his daughter, who would perhaps bring in more young people. Certainly. She left the administration in very good order, and I think the Huckabees and the Trumps are still very close. At least they speak fondly of each other. I don't know. It's an interesting choice, but I like him. I've always thought he's a pretty good dude. Let's go to this guy Kenyon in Gallatin wants to talk about that story I had just before the news about marijuana. Hello, Kenyon. You're up on the drive. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. I don't want to make myself sound silly, but because I don't smoke marijuana and I don't want my kids to or my family, but when you look at alcohol and the schedules of these drugs, and for marijuana to be a Schedule 3 drug or Schedule 1 drug, is that the worst?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right.
Fentanyl is a Schedule 2 drug. So
yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Yeah.
No. So, and you talk about all these symptoms of marijuana. Well, look at the alcohol that is legal, and marijuana would be a fraction of.
KJ.
I don't know what happened there. Let's go to let's go to Joy in Franklin. What's up with you, Joy?
Hey, Brian, I've got to be in my bonnet, as you say. Need some marriage advice from you, man.
Well, I don't know. I'm the guy, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So my wife and I got into a really big argument the other day, and I told her, and I don't know if this was really wise of me, but I told her she needed to start embracing her mistakes. And after that, Brian, she gave me a hug. So didn't really know how to take that.
Embrace it. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you, we haven't done this in a while, but you know what? Joey from Franklin, you said something that's pretty funny. So you're our grand prize winner today. Joey, congratulations. A grand prize winner. We don't have many here on the drive anymore.
Well, what does he win, Brian?
Oh, he wins absolutely nothing because the cheap people who run the station don't give us any prizes to give away. But you get a hearty handshake and a pat on the back and a good old-fashioned attaboy. Thank you so much for bringing a little levity into our day, Joy from Franklin. All right, Kent in Franklin, you're up next on the drive. What's on your mind, Kent?
Okay, a while back they had a thing on where they said that the Democrats were trying to keep other Republicans from running in the presidential race.
Right.
And so is that what they're not and is that not what they are doing to Donald Trump?
Say that one more time. You're talking about Democrats trying to keep other people from running.
The Republicans.
Yeah, that's happening.
Yes.
There are some cases where Democrats are going after congressional candidates and calling them insurrectionists, and they're trying to widen this argument and again have the courts disallow who you can vote for.
Right, but okay. Well, isn't that illegal to try to keep the Republicans from running for an office?
Well, I think it is, and I think the Supreme Court is going to come to that conclusion pretty quickly since they're going to take the case up and hear arguments in early February. Thank you for the call, Kent. Appreciate it. We got time for one more there, Chris? Okay, about Tommy in Kentucky. He's calling in from Kentucky. What's on your mind, Tommy?
It's Tiny.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They call me Tiny because I'm such a little fella.
Yeah. Tiny.
I'm 6'8",
I'm
320 pounds.
Wow, you sound like it. 6'8" and how much? How big?
320.
Wow. You are a big boy. Okay, Tiny. from Kentucky. What's on your mind?
I spent 38 years holding the big steering wheel on the highway, and what puts a bee in my bonnet is people trying to do their best impression of thumbs of fury going down the road. Driving intoxicated is worse than driving intoxicated.
Wow.
Driving intoxicated. I like
intoxicated. Yeah, I like that a lot. I got to tell you, I love your voice, Tiny. I need you to cut me a promo because I need that voice on my show. Have you ever thought about? All right, I'm going to put. Don't go away, Chris. Put him on hold. I want to get his number. I'm going to get Tiny from Kentucky to cut me a radio promo.
That's going to be good.
That's going to be really good. I mean, we're going to have to do that for sure. All right, it's now 53 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. This is Tiny from Kentucky, and you're listening to The Drive. I could just, is that a voice or what? All right, let's talk about the Brass Lantern and Legends Restaurant. Those are Johnny Fleeman's properties, celebrating 35 years in Middle Tennessee. And they want to say Happy New Year to you. And to celebrate 35 years, they asked me to tell you a little bit about their daily specials. Now, on Monday, fresh breaded chicken fingers with fries and coleslaw, $8.99. See, that's just the thing. Good food at a really good price. Tuesday, a slow-cooked prime rib and a side for $18.99. Wednesday, 6-ounce choice sirloin with a side, $8.99. Hamburger steak on Thursday for $8.99. Sundays, 3 different pasta dinners, $9.99. For 35 years, the Brass Lantern and Legends restaurants have made you authentic food from scratch, delicious recipes, and affordable prices. So they want you to come by and continue to take advantage of their great food at a great location at a very reasonable price. Daily lunch specials start at $6.99. Also, don't forget to pick up some of those delicious Johnny Fleeman products at your local grocery store.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Some breaking news at a police precinct in West Nashville, violence in Baghdad, and RSV cases on the rise around the nation. 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I love the idea of having Tiny being a guest announcer, introducing segments.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Hi, this is Tiny. Weighs in, what, 6'8", 325?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sound like he's a truck driver out there.
Big old boy.
Big guy.
He's a big old boy. And I'm Tiny. When I'm on the road, I listen to The Drive with Brian Wilson.
What if it was all the phone that he was using, though, and you meet him in person and he goes, "Hey, Brian, it's Tiny. I talked to you on the phone."
I don't somehow.
I have a feeling that's not going to be the case.
I think it's probably how he really sounds. I'd love to get him on a real good microphone somewhere. We got to work that out. I'm enthusiastic about that. Yeah. And we had the first time in a long time we played the happy organ music. That was a good one.
That was quite a little tale he told there, yeah.
Yeah, embraced my mistakes, so she gave me a hug.
He asked for it.
I have to remember that one. It is now 58 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
It's 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. We're down to 46 degrees in Nashville. Latest traffic report, weather forecast on the way in 5 minutes. Some breaking news in Tennessee. Channel 4 reports that a body was found behind the police precinct in West Nashville this afternoon. No other details have been released at this time. We'll keep you updated with that story right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Going over to some global news, the U.S. military has confirmed they've carried out its own airstrike in Baghdad, killing an Iran-backed militia leader responsible for recent attacks on American personnel. Here's Luis Martinez.
One thing you always hear from the Pentagon is that the United States will carry out self-defense strikes at a time and place of their choosing. So this was the time and place yesterday. The location was deep inside of Baghdad, which is a very rare location for the United States to carry out a strike, and particularly such a senior leader of one of these two militias that the United States says are backed by Iran and that are launching Iranian-made missiles and drones at American military bases to the tune of 120 attacks since mid-October.
And Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh said today that the goal of the United States and Iraq's militaries is to defeat ISIS. Right now in Tennessee, a woman was shot this morning in South Nashville inside of her home by what seems to be a stray bullet. The shooting happened before 6 a.m. on Lewis Street. Officers closed roads close by during the investigation. MNPD expects the woman to recover from her injuries. RSV cases have risen in the United States, and now a couple in Oklahoma wants parents to know how deadly it can be. They had no idea before their 10-day-old baby died. Alex Stone.
Elijah Dexter was just 10 days old. Hours after a checkup at the hospital, he died over New Year's as a result of RSV. His heartbroken parents, who are thankful they got Christmas with him, say they have a message for other parents that RSV is real and deadly.
Now I see how deadly it can turn fast.
He had developed a cough, and then he died. Dallas Dexter saying,
I just wanted more people to be aware.
Oklahoma Children's Hospital says 17% of its cases right now are RSV. That's up from a month ago.
And looking at RSV cases here in Tennessee, News 2 reports that Cookeville Regional Medical Center is now not going to let anyone 16 or under, along with anyone showing signs of illness, visit patients at the hospital. Dr. Mark Peace at CRMC says that Tennessee is, quote, about as densely infected as you can be, adding that COVID-19 hospitalizations have spiked about 60% in the last 2 weeks. CRMC said there will be special exceptions for current restrictions, including siblings of newborns in the birthing center. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon. I guess we're, it's sort of dark out. I never know whether at this time of day to call it afternoon or evening.
Yeah, it's kind of right on the...
it's on the cusp when you say, well, I'll go with evening. Good evening, everyone. 5:05 on Super Talk 99.7. It's time for hour number 3 of The Drive on this Friday, January 5th. I'm Brian Wilson. Glad that you're along with us. We got a lot of ground to cover here over the next 2 hours. We're halfway through today's edition of The Drive. And I got to tell you, we'll be doing another one of those Fone Ur Farb Fridays in this hour at 5:35. So, I mean, that one was so much fun. So, if we want you to top it. If you got something you want to do, get your thoughts together. They need to be cogent, concise, coherent. The 3 C's.
Or funny.
Or funny. Yeah, I mean, we'll always take a good laugh.
Or if you get a voice like Tiny.
Tiny, yeah. Tiny, I have a feeling. I don't know. I feel like Tiny could be a regular segment. The World According to Tiny.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
I do too. I think I love the sound of his voice, and that is a good old boy there. I like that. I'm going to work on that one. Okay. We got a lot of stuff to cover here. I want to spend some time going through woke news, the things that just make you shake your head about the things that the left is up to and all of their wokeness and, that they try to promulgate on the rest of us. it's like, really, sometimes I don't recognize the country we're in when I see some of the things that the woke left are trying to put upon the rest of us. Listen to this. California, this is from the postmillennial.com. California to provide free sex change operations for illegal immigrants. Now, that's, if I lived in California, that's how I'd want my tax dollars spent. Free sex change operations for illegal immigrants. A state memo regarding Medi-Cal stipulates that gender-affirming care is covered benefit only when medically necessary. It's been revealed that sex change and hormone therapy will be included in the health care coverage offered to illegal immigrants in California as of, well, the first of this year. Regardless of whether they enter the country via legal means, they will qualify for Medi-Cal and the state's public health insurance program. The program had typically been reserved for low-income individuals, family, children, seniors, persons with disabilities, people in foster care, pregnant women, and low-income people with diseases such as tuberculosis, cancer, or AIDS. But now, illegal immigrants will be able to access emergency and pregnancy-related care, surgical and non-surgical procedures that bring primary and secondary gender characteristics into conformity are part of that. According to the Daily Caller, a state memo regarding Medi-Cal stipulated that gender-affirming care is covered, benefit only, when medically necessary. The request for gender-affirming care should come from specialists experienced in providing culturally competent care to transgender and gender-diverse individuals, and should use nationally recognized guidelines. Okay. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, they're going the other direction. New Hampshire Democrats vote to ban child sex changes, and a young liberal lawmaker decries what they call irreversible surgeries. New Hampshire State Democrat Jonah Wheeler cited the irreversible surgeries when announcing his support for a bill banning child sex change surgeries in the state. 12 New Hampshire State House Democrats voted with Republicans to pass a bill banning sex change surgeries for children. So there are, in some places, Democrats who see this, I think, the correct way. You know, I did not spend a great deal of time. I allowed the news to cover it. I did not get into it deeply about this Iowa school shooter the other day. But then I saw a little bit more about some of it. We've learned more about the identity of the person who carried out the shooting, that he took his own life and killed one student. Sad, of course. But Red State's reporting that the shooter who opened fire, injuring at least 3 people, taking his own life, identified as part of the transgender movement. Allegedly identified as Dylan Butler. His background is going to bust some narratives. He was a senior at Perry High School, named as a suspected gunman by local news outlet WHO 13. One of the 3 people injured was the school principal, Dan Marburger, who rushed to the hospital and currently in surgery for his gunshot wound. Butler, you posted a TikTok posing in what appeared to be a school bathroom, saying, "Now we wait." The revelation didn't come to police, who have yet to officially identify the shooter, but news organizations have ascertained his identity from what appeared to be a TikTok he posted just before the shooting. Who is Butler? His social media has largely been scrubbed already, but some were able to capture screenshots of his online presence before that happened. He had a pride flag in his TikTok bio, shared the transgender flag in his posts, and had allegedly participated in transgender Reddit groups under the name Dylan Pickles 1996. He is an LGBTQ activist and part of that community, which, sadly brings together some thoughts of the parallels between this particular shooting and the Covenant shooting, which was, again, very different and very unusual in that it was a woman who carried out the attack, although the woman was at times identifying as a male. We've talked a lot about EVs and the Biden administration's attempt to push forward the idea of EVs, electric vehicles, and how badly that's going. But listen to this. In order to save the planet, the Democrats will tell you need to switch to driving an electric car. In order to drive your electric car, you sometimes will need to rely on diesel. The largest charging station in the world sits in Coalinga, California. The Harris Ranch Tesla Supercharger Station contains 98 charging bays that can charge your Tesla up to 80% in 20 minutes. While Tesla CEO Elon Musk said back in 2017 that all of the company's superchargers were being converted to solar energy, the Coalinga station is simply too large to run on anything other than diesel generators, which sit right behind the Shell station. They don't want you to see it. I mean, it's an outrageous to think about. Your electric car is being powered by evil, dirty diesel. What's next? Are electric car batteries produced through a process that pollutes air and water and further destroy the environment? Oh, well, yeah, that happens too. This all can be found in the Washington Examiner. That's right. Diesel generators to power the EV charging station. By the way, when we do these stories about EVs and how, I think that a lot of people are finding that they are not meeting their needs, I do hear occasionally from people who say, I have an EV and it works great. And you know what I've noticed? Almost every time I get an email or a text message or some kind of communication about that, people are talking about a Tesla. I love my Tesla and it works great. And there are a lot of Tesla charging stations. I don't know. I just know that Ford and GM have found they're not selling many of them. So apparently people are finding that that does not meet their need. Biden administration, next story from the Daily Caller. Biden administration wants to promote green energy by, I'm not making this up, destroying 4 hydroelectric dams. There have been a dizzying array of recent setbacks for green energy, including slumping demand for electric vehicles, an embarrassing rollout of new charging stations. Strangely, though, the administration appears determined to undercut its own goal at every turn. A government document has been leaked detailing an administration plan to save Northwest fisheries by promising to build new green energy projects in the Pacific Northwest. Particularly controversial because it reveals the government is open to removing 4 major dams on the lower Snake River in southeast Washington. Altogether, they generate roughly 1,000 megawatts of electricity, or up to 3,000 megawatts during peak season. That is clean, renewable energy that could power some 800,000 American homes, and they are open to shutting all that down. Now, hydroelectric, if you really want to find a good, clean way to generate electricity, hydroelectric is a great way to go. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But not to the Biden administration. They believe that wind and solar are the answers to the future. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Blue states, according to the Daily Caller again, saw the highest homeless rates in all of 2023. Blue states and the District of Columbia, this is not surprising, dominated top spots for homeless residents per capita, according to a December report from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. New York and Vermont came in second and third with an estimated 103,200, or basically 52 homeless people for every 10,000, and roughly 50.9 per 10,000 respectively. So New York higher, and followed by Vermont. Washington, D.C. has a higher rate of homelessness than all 50 states at 73.3 per 10,000. And I can tell you, as somebody who worked in that town a lot of times, there are a lot of homeless. For some reason, it seems that homeless people, especially those that seem to be suffering from mental problems, for some reason or not, they seem to be drawn to Washington, D.C. So there's about 5,000 people in D.C. who are homeless. Oregon was next with an estimated homeless rate of 50 per 10,000, or about 20,000 people. California came in fifth. What do all these states have in common? I don't know. Let's see. Let's go through this again. New York, Vermont, Oregon, California. San Francisco reached a record high since the pandemic of over 500 sites. New York has been hosting more illegal immigrants than homeless, over 70,000 in homeless shelters. I wonder why. Alternatively, red states had the lowest homeless rates. Mississippi only 3.3 per 10,000. Louisiana 6.9 per 10,000. Alabama reported to have around 3,300 homeless residents in 2023 out of a population of millions. I vehemently dislike an organization known as Media Matters. It's a liberalist activist group that has called itself a media watchdog, but they are so left-wing. I got to tell you, when I worked at the Fox News Channel, hardly a week went by that Media Matters wasn't coming after me for something they didn't like about my reporting. And there wasn't anything wrong with my reporting. It's just that they took umbrage with my interpretation of certain facts, I suppose. And so they would come at me and they'd say, he's wrong. Well, I wasn't wrong. It was just, they had a different interpretation of those facts. And I used to get real irritated about it, but then I began to realize it was like a badge of honor to be pointed out, to have, to draw on the attention of Media Matters. Apparently they unwittingly somehow published the name of its top donors, which is they're not required to do and have never done. And it turns out that there are 5 contributions to Media Matters that total $12.3 million. Here are some of the names. Deborah Simon gave them $4 million. She's a philanthropist who has given major donations to Democrat lawmakers. The Gill Foundation, which is dedicated to the advancement of equality for LGBTQ Americans and every Coloradoans, gave nearly $3 million to Media Matters. They received $1.575 million from co-chairman Joshua Birkenstein of Bain Capital and his wife Anita. They are big donors to the Democrat Party. It's a fixture of the Democratic allied sphere, and I'm telling you, I think they do a lot of harm. And the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation gave $1.75 million to Media Matters in 2022. It was founded by investor Warren Buffett and renamed to honor his wife. So did Warren Buffett give $1.75 million to Media Matters? It appears that may well be the case. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
The leader of the NRA stepping down, sexual assault against children in Tennessee, and threats against law enforcement in the nation. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for a fan favorite. It's Mac Morey's Wide, Wild World of Sports. And now here is the host of our program. You know him. You love him. You cannot live without him. The one, the only, the incomparable Mac Morey, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. We made it.
That's right. We made it to Friday.
We did. Even though it was a short week, it seemed longer for some reason, but that's okay.
It really did, didn't it?
I don't know why. It was even shorter for me, so.
Yeah, you slacker, you.
Yeah, it was. It was a very short week for you.
What are you complaining about?
Still dragging.
That's right. He claimed that he had the creeping crud.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
The Kansas City flu.
All right, so what are we going to be talking about today in Mac Morey's Wide, Wild World of Sports?
And it is wild. Titans, last game of the regular season and last game of the season for the Titans.
Right.
No postseason hopes. They've been eliminated long ago. They will host the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the second year in a row they'll play the Jaguars to end their regular season. Also the second year in a row that the Jaguars need to win to get in. Last year they did win to get into the playoffs. This year they'll have to do the same, but this year it will be at Nissan right here in Music City. So
and we could be spoilers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Titans could be playing spoilers again. That's kind of been the theme here these last couple of weeks. So, and we've talked about this. I mean, Mike Vrabel's going to want to win, going to try and go out there and win. Whoever starts under center, which will be Ryan Tannehill, is going to want to win. He's got things to play for. And number 22, we talked about it yesterday, is his 30th birthday. Derrick Henry could be his last game as a Tennessee Titan. I did do some research on his contract here. I know I was doing that on the fly yesterday. He does have 2 years left on his deal. They are a lot less as far as per year money annually, and it'll be a lot less of a cap hit for the Tennessee Titans.
Right.
So it makes sense for them to find a trade partner or release him, one of those two things. So could be his last game as a Tennessee Titan this Sunday as well. So lots of storylines in this game, and obviously the Titans 5-11 this year just has not been their season. At this point, playing spoiler could see some positives in winning and beating the Jags. Obviously, a division rival, spoiling their hopes for a postseason. And the Titans could see some pros in losing this game because they could get a higher draft pick. Right now, they're sitting at 7th overall in the 2024 NFL draft order. They could see that go as high as pick number 5. And this talent is in this year's draft up front anyways, up in that top 10, top 15. There is a bunch of talent. So I'm excited. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I've been looking, I'm starting already to do some draft research for the Titans, looking at some guys that could possibly be joining the squad and helping out their efforts to win some games. And Weber, I know this is a name that you'll know. Tight end out of Georgia, Brock Bowers, is going to be a top 10 pick.
Yep.
And the Tennessee Titans need weapons to throw to. Brock Bowers is a receiving tight end. He's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he can line up outside in the slot, hand in the dirt. He can do it all. And that would be a fantastic guy, a go-to person for Will Levis. And that's someone that I'm already eyeing. I know we've got the season to finish off this Sunday, but I'm just doing my due diligence here. Brock Bowers is a name, if I'm a Titans fan, that I will be wanting very badly.
It's got to be one of those things that a coach really hates to be in this sort of position because obviously you want the best draft pick you possibly can when you're in this situation, but you don't want your team to go out there and intentionally lose.
No, definitely not.
I mean, it's just not something that looks good as a team.
No, but I mean, honestly, think about it. I mean, this particular season, it's gone. I mean, there's nothing to be gained by, I think, number one, putting your top team at risk, your top players at risk.
Yep.
They can only get hurt, and that only hurts you next year. And there's no real percentage and going out and putting out a heroic effort to win because, ultimately what you're going to have is you're going to have better draft picks, which is in the best interest long-term of the team.
Absolutely.
Now, I mean, I don't ever want to say go out there and lose one for the Titans. That seems wrong. And we want Derrick Henry to have a great game because this could be his last one.
Yes.
But at the same time, is it really in the best interest of him to pull off a victory here?
Yeah.
You have to, as a coach, I would think you have to want your team to go out with the attitude that they're trying to win the game, right? I mean, otherwise,
100%.
So I think you go
Has
out and maybe
anybody
play
been
a little.
asked about this? What has the response been?
Yes, Vrabel was asked about this. I could maybe find the audio on the fly, but I'd have to make sure it was bleeped out because he got a little upset and said it effing sucks to lose was basically his answer. He does not like to lose, and he will not be trying to lose, it seems, on Sunday. And you got to think about it for him. We mentioned it earlier on in this segment this week. 5-18 in the last 23 games of the Titans. Of those 5 wins, none are division wins. They have not beaten a division opponent in a year and a half.
That's not good.
Not good. It's not good. So, you got to think for Vrabel. I mean, beating the Jags would just be, okay, great. I got that monkey off my back. We beat a division opponent. We spoiled their hopes. And frankly, you look at this draft order again, looking at Tankathon here. 7th pick right now are the Titans. I said they could go up to 5 with a loss depending on if the Chargers and Giants lose. They could only really go up to pick 8, and they're at 7. That's the worst it could get. So you got to think, okay, they're pretty much, all right, they're 5 through 8. That's what's going to be in 2024 unless they trade.
Yeah.
They're going to be 5 through 8.
There's some good talent to be gotten there.
Oh, yes. Brock Bowers being one of them.
But you've talked in the past about how you think that the main thing they need really more than anything is something that strengthens their O-line.
Yep. And they'll be right in position for that. A tackle out of Notre Dame, I believe his name's Joe Alt. He's, just a tower of a human being, 6'7" or 6'8", and he's been playing in college for a couple of years now. And I think he's a left tackle, so it'll be perfect for that blind side for Will Levis. Yeah, that's another guy they could come in and just say, all right, you got Peter Skoronski at the guard position. We're gonna pair him up on the left side with hopefully a star tackle, and we'll have a left side of our line that's going to be sturdied up going into this next year. That'd be great. I would love that too.
Titans fans have been saying that for a while, though.
They have.
That's been a problem for quite some time.
Yes,
with the offensive line.
Yes, it has. And you got to think about it. Second year, second draft, first full offseason for Rand Carthon with the Tennessee Titans as general manager. He was a part of drafting Peter Skoronski, who this year has had some ups and downs. I think overall has had a good season. Is going to be a guard for the next few years here for the Tennessee Titans. If he could pair that up and have, go 2 for 2 on the offensive line, man, that would just be a good start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it really would.
Sure.
It would good. And, you ought to also look back at some of the losses. And one of the things that I think you have to acknowledge is that some of those losses were really close.
Really close. Great point.
Really close. I mean, they could have easily gone, just one break the other direction, could have easily gone in our favor. So maybe, although it looks bad, it maybe not be that bad and eminently fixable with a good coach
100%.
and some good draft picks. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Thank you very much. Time now to take off your sports hat, put on your news hat. Coming up for the news. By the way, just remember, we're going to be doing Fone Ur Farb Friday after the news. But now it's time for the news with Mac Morey.
.531, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 45 degrees in Nashville. Full weather forecast. Latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Ahead of a civil corruption trial, the longtime leader of the National Rifle Association stepping down. Here's Dave Packer.
As CEO, Wayne LaPierre has led the NRA for more than 3 decades, where he pushed back any attempts at gun control in the face of mass shootings. But now the 74-year-old is resigning ahead of a New York civil trial where he and other executives are accused of spending millions of dollars of donors' money on expensive perks, including, in LaPierre's case, the use of a 107-foot yacht. LaPierre has said cruising the Bahamas on that yacht was necessary because he was facing security threats in the U.S. after mass shootings.
And crime in Tennessee, Channel 4 reports that a young man was arrested yesterday after he admitted to sexually assaulting a small child. The 4-year-old victim's mother accused 19-year-old Amarian Island of sexually assaulting her son. Officers reported the child had a visible physical injury. The child was transported to the hospital. Officers took Island into custody Wednesday night. He faces 4 aggravated child rape charges in addition to an aggravated sexual battery charge. He remains in custody on a $125,000 bond. And Attorney General Merrick Garland gave some startling updates on threats to officials across the country during remarks he made in Washington, D.C. on Friday. Liz Landers has more.
Attorney General Merrick Garland warned of a deeply disturbing spike in threats to public officials around the country Friday as he met with Department of Justice leaders to discuss violent crime.
In just the final months of 2023, the department investigated and charged individuals with making violent threats against FBI agents, federal judges, including a Supreme Court justice, presidential candidates, members of Congress, members of the military, and election workers.
Liz Landers, ABC News, Washington.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. The whole goal here is that you will know how much it will cost before the care is actually delivered. What a great idea that is. They are well known for their smart care plans, and this is a good thing. Think about this. $69 a month, that's where it starts. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, here's how that works. You take that, you marry it with a high-deductible insurance plan, it could end up saving you and your family a lot of money. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. And Grace Point wants you to know they believe strongly in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccines for you and for your children. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number 599-6868 to schedule a visit. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock, and you know I'm really hopeful that we're going to have another great round like we had in the last hour. A little thing that we like to call Fone Ur Farb Friday. Get on the horn right now, 615-737-9986. It's time for Fone Ur Farb Friday, where we let you weigh in on whatever's on your mind. Maybe you got a bee in your bonnet. Maybe you have a burr in your saddle. Maybe you have a bug in a place where I really hope you never, ever really have a bug. But in the meantime, just climb up on our 100,000-watt soapbox and express yourself within boundaries, because it is a family show. Maybe you want to take umbrage. Maybe there's a story out there you think we're missing. Maybe you have a question. Maybe you want to stump the chump. Whatever it is, let's get those phone lines filled up. We love first-time callers. We had a funny one last hour, and we were introduced to a guy named Tiny, who I think is going to become a regular feature on our program, I'm pretty sure. 615-737-9986. We got a lot of open phone lines. Let's get after it, folks. Start with Billy in Murfreesboro. Billy, you're on with Brian on the drive.
Hey, Brian, how's it going?
It's going well. What's on your mind today?
Well, I've got a bee in my bonnet. There are two things. One, the Chiefs forgot how to catch a football, which is driving me crazy. And two, I got caught in this queue when I tried to call Xfinity today for about 45 minutes. This computer kept trying to make me talk to the computer, but I wanted to talk to a real person.
I know. Isn't that maddening? Yeah, I know. I had a friend that I was talking to on text, and I tried to call that person, and when I tried to call, it wouldn't go through. And he texted me and said, "You know what? I'm on the phone. I'm trying to get an answer. I've got a billing problem with this particular company." He had been on the phone for 2 hours, and I've been through that. I know that's a maddening thing, isn't it?
I finally got somebody, and I said, I'll give you $1,000 if you'll go find that automated person that keeps trying to make me talk to her and hit her with a baseball bat.
I'm telling you, it is maddening. And, it's like these big companies, they want to take your dollars sometimes, but they don't want to recognize that, your time is valuable. And so, it's customer service is just not what it used to be. All right, thank you so much for that, Billy. I'm with you on that one. There's nothing I hate more than having my time wasted, and that seems like that's just one that just sets me on edge. Got a lot of phone lines open. 615-737-9986. Mike in Portland. Mike, you're on with Brian on the drive. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Well, y'all were talking about electric vehicles yesterday.
Right.
Okay. I'm an avid deer hunter, and I take my truck out to the woods with me, and I sit in my deer stand, okay? What am I supposed to do if I take an electric vehicle out there and I shoot a 200-pound deer, and how am I supposed to get it back?
Well, I mean, if it's an electric truck, they say that they can haul the same. They just don't haul them very far.
Well, I wasn't taking no electric truck. I'm just saying if I took an electric vehicle out there instead of my truck, how am I supposed to get my deer back?
Well, I don't know. That seems like a real serious problem. But thank goodness you don't have to face that right now.
I got a big old 4x4 250 Dodge Ram, so I'm good.
You're good. All right. Thank you so much for the call, Mike. Appreciate it. Let's go to John in Fairview. Hello, John. You're on with Brian on the drive. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Brian. I just, with the world today is so crazy. We are sitting on the precipice of World War III, and it seems like nobody's talking about it.
So tell me your view of that. Why do you feel that way?
Well, we have active conflicts in the Middle East. We have a war against Russia with everything but the name of war on it. We're getting attacked in our bases around the world that we shouldn't be in the first place. Foreign policy has garbage, and we're fighting and supplying the world's current wars, and nobody's freaking talking about it.
I know.
I mean, we don't hold any of our politicians accountable for the stupid decisions they make. We have a giant bureaucratic machine that is just churning and more war, and nobody on the conservative side, especially on radio, seems to be freaking talking about it.
Well,
it's annoying.
Listen, it is troubling, and I think the thing that we have to understand here is the reason we have this is because our leader of our country right now, and I use the term leader with air quotes, is incredibly weak, and power abhors a vacuum. And when you have somebody on the world stage, in the United States, you know, if we have a weak leader, other world leaders become adventurous. They look at us and they say, well, look, we can do what we want to do because the United States doesn't have a strong leader who will act. They assessed Biden after the situation in Afghanistan, and we ended up with Ukraine. And now we have, I think the part of what happened in the Mideast was because they thought, well, the Americans will stay out of it. Well, we have stayed out of it mostly, but it seems like we're being drawn into a wider conflict in the Mideast. And don't think that China is just sitting there and biding their time. They may well take action while this president is still in power. Because they very much want to do something about Taiwan, and each and every day their adventurism becomes, greater. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's a dangerous time on the world stage. It truly is. Brought about, I think, largely by the weakness of our president. John, thank you for the call. Greatly appreciate it. Katie in Fairview, you're up next on the drive. Hello, Katie. What's on your mind?
Well, you can say ditto to all the things John said. But anyway, one of my many pet peeves is I don't understand.
Katie?
The first day in office,
we lost you there. Start again.
The first day in office, Biden told the immigrants to come on up, okay? That in itself, right there, was an impeachable offense. As a president, his main job, his first job, is to protect our borders. Nobody did anything about it. You got it? I don't understand why nobody does anything about these atrocities that this guy is doing.
Well,
we might as well not have another. We don't have. It sounds like we have one government without a two-party system.
Yeah, well, let me point out something, Katie. And this is everybody says, well, why weren't we doing something? Well, when all that happened, the Republicans were not in control of even one body of government. The Democrats controlled both the House and the Senate. So they're not going to take on, anything, and they're not going to critically go after this president. It's only after Republicans, claimed control of the House that they began investigating things like Biden Incorporated and digging up all kinds of stuff about that. So you've never had the ability. You cannot respond when you're in the minority. There's an old saying in Washington that in the House of Representatives, being in the minority versus the majority is like the difference between chicken salad and chicken poop. It's true. When you're in the majority, you have all the power. When you're in the minority, you have zero. So they began, last year, starting to push back, but it takes a while. And I'll tell you this, it's finally, I'm glad to see, under Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, some resolve about the border situation, where they're saying, no, listen, we're buckling down here. You're not getting squat through the House of Representatives as long as we're in charge and you're not willing to do something to make the border situation better. So I think it does matter. Elections matter. And that's why we really need to have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House if we want to see things return to any semblance of normalcy. Thank you for the call, Katie. Greatly appreciate it. Betty in Hendersonville. Betty, what's on your mind today? Hello, Betty.
Well, happy Friday, Farb.
Hey, happy Friday.
And happy New Year. Okay, this is my public service announcement, if you will. because I know you are getting new listeners all the time. Some of them have recently moved to the great state of Tennessee. So presidential primary elections will be in Tennessee on March the 5th. The last day to register to vote in Tennessee will be Monday, February 5th. For all of our service members, because we have folks who are active duty or a family that are active duty, the last day to request an absentee ballot will be Tuesday, February the 27th.
All right.
And the first day of early voting will be Wednesday, February the 14th, Valentine's Day.
Yeah, and
So for
we're
Valentine's Day, you can cast your vote.
We're urging all Republicans to vote early. That's the new thing. We're going to play the Democrats game, get people to vote early. Betty, thanks for the call. Greatly appreciate it. David, is it Canesville? David, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, David?
Brian, thank you for taking my call. I hate to do this because, first of all, I want to say something. I'm a person that doesn't want the government to do anything. I want to just stay out of my business.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
But I think this time I'm going to need them. We've got a lot of these people that are coming here from, from other places, and most of them, they're horse hockey brained. They're out here, state highways. We all know them. 2 lanes, yeah? Little to no shoulders. They're riding bicycles. Now, I got news for you, Brian. There are times I'm hauling up to 10 tons of hay. And you know how state roads are here. They're curvy. We go up and down hills. Crest a hill on a curve. And here they are in Impala-drones in spandex. And trust me, nobody wants to see you in spandex. You're not Lance Armstrong. You're Robert Armstrong. But the idea of it is I need to figure out how to get the government to make it illegal to these people, or I'm going to kill somebody.
Well, I'm telling you, it is maddening. There's nothing. I mean, there's something about bike riders. They feel very entitled, don't they?
Oh, tell me about it. But it's physics. I'm driving a rig. I got 10 tons of hay. I can't stop in 10 feet.
Well, I'm with
and
you.
Unfortunately, I'm really afraid somebody is going to get killed. Now, they probably deserve it, but my insurance is not going to like it.
No, it's not. So what you do is you should pass them, then throw off a bale of hay and say, hey, watch out for that hay.
But the idea of it is who can we go to in the state, in the legislature, anything, to have them look at this? Because this is really serious. I know it sounds like I'm trying to make light of it, but I'm dead serious about this.
No,
listen. Highway is no place for a bicycle.
I'm with you on that. Let's send a note to our legislators. We got a special legislative session. I mean, we got a legislative session that's just getting underway. Maybe they could take it up. David, thank you for the call, man. Appreciate it. And man, I think there are a lot of people going, amen, brother. Right there with you. Fletch, in downtown, I guess in Nashville. What's up, Fletch? What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. I was just going to let you know on your when you reported the economics about the employment people, I thought you'd get a kick out of this. In those numbers, 58,000 of those employees were government employees, and 32 or 34, I forget which one it was, were hospital related, which goes right back to the government paying them too. So they curve these numbers. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so you're saying that a lot of the new employment numbers that came out today, that a great number of them are the reason that we're seeing more employment is because the government is hiring.
Exactly.
All right, man. I know. Well, there are lies, there are damned lies, and then there are statistics and numbers, and you can twist those numbers to make any kind of case that you want. They're trying to make the case that the economy's coming back, but what it sounds like to me is that the government's just getting bigger. All right, have I got time for one more, Chris? I got time for one more. Jamie out on the road. You're on with Brian on the drive. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Brian. If electric vehicles is the next big phase and all these car manufacturers are switching over, I'm just curious about all the new gas stations that are being built, especially in Middle Tennessee. Have you noticed that? So why would all these gas companies be invested in brand new gas stations if electric vehicles is our future?
Well, I think what you're going to find is they may put in gas pumps, but they have made some thoughts about what might happen when electric cars are more prevalent than they are now. I mean, one of the things that I think the whole Buc-ee's thing is about. I mean, I love going to Buc-ee's, but Buc-ee's, when you go to Buc-ee's, you're there for about 30 minutes. I mean, you don't just go into a Buc-ee's and, get your burrito and leave. You're there for 30 minutes. It's an experience. It's a shopping experience. And I think the long-term idea of Buc-ee's is that they will be a place where you pull up and you can do an 80% charge on your electric car while you're, killing 20 minutes inside Buc-ee's. And I think that they're making those moves. I think most of those gas stations that are going in now are thinking about that in the future. But, from everything I can hear, Americans are rejecting the idea of electric cars. So you can't make people buy what they don't want. Thank you for the call. 54 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Let's talk about gold, which has been used as money for millennia. It's a tried and true store of value, consistent across generations. And some have observed that generational wealth has three components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, land, I don't know. Can you afford land right now? I don't know that you can because interest rates are so high. Art, I don't know anything about art, but precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, things are tangible. You can hold them in your hot little hand. And so if you want to know more about precious metals, why don't you go where I would go, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. The fact is that inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money, and gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. You can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Maybe you have gold that was given to you. You're not sure what it's worth, or you're just curious about learning more about precious metals. All of these things point you in the direction of Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin. So do what I did. Go there, go to their website, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com, to set up your one-on-one appointment. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Murder is down in the nation, but the FBI now looking to another crime that is rising. Metro Police on the lookout for a murder suspect. The Supreme Court to vote on whether or not Colorado can leave Donald Trump off of the 2024 presidential ballot. And a dog eats a very expensive meal. We'll tell you what it was at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I heard your earlier reading of that story, and let me just say that as the owner of now not one, but two French bulldogs, I could totally see that happening. Some dogs just want to get into everything. And I am being reminded on a daily basis, now that I have a little French bulldog puppy, Grogu's now, 3 years old. And, but the puppy, I'm reminded of what Grogu was when she was much younger.
It's all coming back to you.
Oh,
Right?
it's all coming back to me. And I could see that happening. And if you haven't heard this story, stick around for the newscast, because I'm telling you, it's a good story.
It is.
All right. Listen, we got one more hour to go here on The Drive. It's 5:59 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 44 degrees right now in Nashville. Latest forecast and a traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. While the FBI reports the number of murders is down 6% across the country, it's now focused on a new threat that's putting public officials at risk. Andy Field.
Attorney General Merrick Garland addressing law enforcement officials on fighting violent crime, saying there's a spike in people saying they want to harm public servants, including election workers, teachers, reporters, and politicians.
These threats of violence are unacceptable. They threaten the fabric of our democracy.
The Attorney General mentioning increased security fears for many public officials.
Crime in Tennessee. Police now looking for 43-year-old Corey Frazier 2 weeks after a deadly shooting. The incident happened on December 22nd near Brick Church Pike when a man crashed into a telephone pole through a ditch. At first, officials thought of it as a deadly crash. Then, through investigation, saw it as a targeted shooting once investigators knew that he had suffered gunshot wounds. 43-year-old Richard Wilder was found dead. It allegedly came after an argument with Frazier, then tried to drive away. Crime Stoppers now offering a reward of $5,000 for any information leading to an arrest. And the Supreme Court has agreed to hear former President Trump's appeal of the state Supreme Court decision in Colorado, blocking him from the ballot there. Stephen Portnoy.
The justices have scheduled oral arguments for February 8th, about a month from now. It's a speedy timeline for the Supreme Court and an indication that justices are interested in resolving this issue of the 14th Amendment before the election gets too much closer. There's, of course, no way to know at this point which way the justices are leaning. We won't get a sense of that until they start asking questions at oral argument next month.
Meanwhile, House Democrats are on the attack. Jonathan Karl says they claim to have a new report showing while Donald Trump was president, his businesses raked in $7.8 million from 20 foreign governments, alleging he violated the emoluments clause in the Constitution. Eric Trump says all that money was donated. And in Pittsburgh, a dog had a very expensive meal. His owners are now the ones who are paying for it. Dave Packer explains.
The workers building a new fence wanted to be paid in cash, so Clayton and Carrie Law went to the bank, withdrew $4,000 and put it on the counter. Clayton came back a half hour later. Their dog Cecil had eaten about $2,000 and tore up the rest.
It's kind of like a WTF moment where, I don't understand it didn't seem real.
The torn up money was easier to recover.
That's another $50.
The tougher job gathering all of their dogs' deposits in the yard and taping the cash back together.
We had to just kind of remove from his number.
Yep, $3,500 recovered so far.
Seems like a pretty expensive treat. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 6 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to Brian Wilson and The Drive, and we're glad to have you on this 5th day of January for the last hour of the last day of the week before we start our weekend, last work day of the week. And so, set back. We got a lot of stuff to cover as we wrap up our last hour of the first week of January 2024. The big story that came this afternoon, and this is huge, not unexpected, but still huge, as we talk about 2024 news, is that the Supreme Court agreed this afternoon to consider former President Donald Trump's bid to toss out a ruling by Colorado's Supreme Court, which has said that Donald Trump should be removed from the ballot in that state. Now, the move comes, according to the Washington Examiner, after Trump appealed last month's 4-3 ruling by the Supreme Court on Wednesday, marked the first time in history that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was invoked to bar a presidential candidate from the ballot. Colorado's High Court found that Trump played a key role in the January 6th Capitol riot, and they say because he is an insurrectionist, that he cannot be on the ballot. The problem is, of course, he's not been charged with being an insurrectionist. He's never been tried with being an insurrectionist. In fact, in all of the cases, the January 6 cases that have been brought, and there have been like 1,000 of them or so, no one has been charged with being an insurrectionist. So how can you then use the insurrection clause? First of all, that's just one. There's about 5 or 6 different weaknesses in this whole Supreme Court decision out of Colorado that raise real questions about how they came to that. Many, many other states have taken a look at it. I think Wyoming, they just rejected that argument. And a lot of other states, even that have that are run by Democrats, and where the judiciary is largely benched, or the bench is completely of Democrat appointees. They have said it doesn't make any sense. You can't make that argument. But somehow, in its infinite wisdom, the Supreme Court of Colorado has, the state of Maine has on the state level, and the group that is out there stirring this pot and trying to make this argument, it has a plan to sort of widen this argument and try to take Trump out as many places as they possibly can. So now what will happen is both sides will put in their arguments, put in their briefs before the High Court. The High Court, will hear this on February 8th. February 8th. So they're not going to let a lot of grass grow under their feet during this time. So, literally just a little over a month from now, the High Court will hear this case. And I would imagine, because of the necessity to allow the campaign process to go forward unfettered, I think that they will do their very best to come back with an expedited decision. And it seems to me that the 6-3 conservative court will make short order of this. And in fact, I would not even be surprised if the High Court rules 9-0, that this is a boneheaded decision by the Supreme Court of Colorado. But it is now officially going to be resolved, and I would imagine resolved in pretty short order. So that is the big news of the day. I found a story earlier today on the Wall Street Journal. It's an essay, really, on the Wall Street Journal, saying that they think, this person who wrote the essay believes that there is a real dilemma for the High Court in this. I don't see it that way. But let me just throw this out there. I don't want to give you things to worry about, but here we go. The conservative majority, including Chief Justice John Roberts, considers itself textualist and originalist, and conservative legal scholars such as Will Baud and Mike Paulson have argued that textualism and originalism argue in favor of disqualifying Trump from office. The text of the 14th Amendment is self-executing, they argue, and allows state officials to decide who has engaged in insurrection as they see fit without enabling legislation from Congress. Both Colorado and Maine decisions relied on Congress's conclusion in its January 6th report that Trump had aided or assisted in insurrection. So that's what they're basing this on. In contrast, judges and officials in Michigan, New Hampshire, California concluded that President Trump should stay on the ballot, at least for now. The questions involved are by their nature political, wrote Judge James Redford in Michigan, warning of the risk of completely opposite and potentially confusing opinions and outcomes. And so the argument is that maybe the Supreme Court will also find that there is some merit to the argument. Everybody that I look to as, I think, having a good bead on matters involving the Constitution seems to think this is a slam dunk. It's 6 o'clock on a Friday. The election cases will revive the debate between more pragmatic Chief Justice Roberts and the rest of the conservative majority, which tends to more devoted to textualism and originalism, and the votes to uphold the Affordable Care Act and avoid formally overturning Roe v. Wade. Roberts had emphasized the importance of considerations such as respecting precedent or maintaining the court's nonpartisan legitimacy. I'll tell you one thing, the High Court doesn't like to get involved in cases like this. And I think my sense of it, and I feel pretty good about this position, is they're going to be looking for some way to just wash their hands of this, make a quick decision, and let the election go on unfettered. They don't want to be seen as in making political decisions in an election year. That's just not what they want to do. But it will be interesting to see. I mean, a lot of people say this all is aimed more at post-Civil War, and there's a lot of, I think, validity to that argument. So February 8th will be a big day as the High Court considers that matter, and then I think we'll turn around in very short order and issue some kind of ruling so that the matter can be put to rest. There's a new one, by the way, a new 14th Amendment argument filed in Massachusetts. And so now they will be looking to see what the High Court says. And then a judge in Wyoming struck down an attempt to do this in the state of Wyoming. So there's a lot of stuff here that I think is pretty interesting to watch, but I think ultimately will be resolved. Let's see. We did this earlier, but I think it's fascinating, and it bears going over again. A really interesting article from the Epoch Times talking about the potential running mates that Trump might pick. I mean, honestly, if you look at it right now, it seems that Trump is probably the person who will get the nomination for Republican, be the standard bearer of the Republican Party. Although, who knows? Supreme Court and all that. But so some people have started playing the parlor game of who would make a great running mate for Donald Trump. And they got an idea, 14 potential running mates, including 2 wild cards. And I'm gonna run through this again because I thought it was pretty interesting and gives you something to think about. I think I like the assessments that they have, by and large. The number one thing that they point to, the number one person they spoke to, is United States Senator Tim Scott. The South Carolina lawmaker could bolster President Trump's candidacy more than many of the other names that have been proposed in recent months. He's passionate about sharing his religious faith, and that would endear him, they say, to evangelical Christians. That's an important voting bloc in the Republican Party. He's the only black Republican senator in Congress. Might draw some black voters, a group that has traditionally voted Democrat but has recently been shifting away from Democrats and certainly away from Joe Biden. Young and vigorous. There's a lot to like about Tim Scott. I like him a lot. The next name up is former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Chris Christie believes that she's running for the vice presidency, although lately she has sharpened her attacks against President Trump. I don't know, she left, I think, on good terms, but Trump has started to call her bird brain and started, when you start doing that, it makes it very difficult then to turn around and say, hey, bird brain, would you like to be my running mate? So I don't know. I don't see that as a real one. The reception of that name being floated when it happened in December was rather frosty from the folks in Trump world. Some of President supporters dislike Miss Haley so much that they swear they'll vote against any ticket that includes the name Haley. So I don't know. What about Ramaswamy? What about him? 37 years old, a millionaire millennial, the youngest Republican to ever seek the Oval Office. He doesn't have any experience, but brings energy, intelligence, glibness. I think in many ways, there are parallels to be drawn between Trump and Ramaswamy. They are sort of kind of the same mold. Very entrepreneurial, very pro-business, both, sort of big, bold personalities on the world stage. I don't know. I don't know that that Trump would bring somebody on who is that big and bold, quite frankly. He's a hard worker, though. He went to Iowa and did what they call the full Grassley. Senator Grassley of Iowa visits all 99 counties every year. All 99 counties in Iowa. Ramaswamy has done it twice. He's gone to every county 2 times. There are 99 of them. That's a lot of travel. So he's not afraid to work hard. This one I like a lot, and it sort of makes a lot of sense to me. She's a very attractive candidate on the Republican stage. Kristi Noem, the South Dakota governor, risen in prominence during the past several years, even though she wouldn't bring any real value in the form of electoral college votes. She's, it's bring in all that highly sought after South Dakota electoral college vote. I don't know that she really helps him in that regard, but she's an attractive candidate. And I don't know, she endorsed him in September of 2023. She's going to be in Iowa as his surrogate, going places where he doesn't have the time to go. They also mentioned North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. I just don't see that happening. I think he was very lackluster, didn't impress anybody, got no ground game. And again, North Dakota doesn't bring a lot of electoral votes. What about Ron DeSantis? I don't think so. I think Ron DeSantis and Trump sort of dislike each other, so I don't see that happening. It would be interesting if he were to make that choice. But I don't. They need to mend some fences before that can happen, and I just don't see either one of them being much interested in doing that. Ben Carson is mentioned in this article as a former HUD secretary. I wouldn't call him dynamic, but again, he's highly thought of in many circles. They mentioned the name of Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And I know that like Noem, Sanders became the first female governor of her state. She'd really just gotten started there. She doesn't have a great deal of political experience, but, I mean, she's been around politics all her life. Her dad, Mike Huckabee. She comes from a state that Trump's going to win anyway. I don't know. I don't see it, quite frankly, but who knows? Former DNI Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe, 58, served as a National Intelligence Director for Trump, served in the U.S. House. He's been a federal prosecutor. He is very much, of the Trump stripe, likes Trump, gets along with Trump. That's a possibility. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo served as CIA Director and Secretary of State under the first Trump administration, 60 years old. Has been a strong defender of President Trump since he left that administration, and I think they're on good terms. So I don't know. This is an interesting idea. U.S. Representative Elise Stefanik. She's sort of high profile, a House Republican. Third most powerful position in that chamber is chair of the Republican Conference. She has defended Trump. She's endorsed Trump. I think Trump likes her. That would be an interesting point in her favor. They mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't see that happening. I think she's She's too much of a loose cannon, my personal opinion. I mean, I like some of the things she stands for, but a lot of people look at her as being sort of all over the place. And this one's interesting. We talked about this earlier. Tucker Carlson as a vice presidential running mate. I don't know. I mean, I know Tucker a little. I'd consider him a friend, not a close friend, but a friend. And I think that he's got a different path. I think he's got a different idea about what he wants to be. And I don't think vice president is on it. Interesting idea here, and we talked about this earlier, independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a political newcomer, but he's pulling about 20% of the vote. Does it make sense to bring him into the fold and maybe get that 20% of the vote? Or does he serve a greater purpose by remaining as a third-party candidate, taking away from Biden? Because most of the polls I've seen suggest when you put him in the mix, he takes away more from Biden than he takes away from Trump, and that would be, of course, a desirable thing. All right, bunch of other names here very quickly. Carrie Lake. There's an interesting one. Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Marco Rubio, don't see it. Marsha Blackburn is mentioned here. J.D. Vance of Ohio. Josh Hawley of Missouri. And immensely likable on the world stage. I like Representative Byron Donalds a lot. And that would be an interesting choice. Wesley Hunt, a Republican from Texas, and Nancy Mace have all been mentioned. Tulsi Gabbard, perhaps. Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, maybe. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. All of those names now being tossed about. Let the speculation begin. 23 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. You know, this next story may be sort of a little self-serving, but I think it's something that I read today, and I said, you know, this is really true, and I need to share this with the audience because, you know, obviously I do a radio program, and I'm very invested in radio. It's where I've spent, well, see, I guess I'm now in my 12th years in radio after spending a great deal of time in TV. And the story in the CNBC today talks about how radio has showed surprising resilience in a rapidly changing media world. You hear a lot of times people talking about legacy media is dead, but that doesn't apply to radio, the article points out. Despite being one of the oldest media formats dating back to the 1890s, radio has maintained relatively stable listenership over the past decade. Pay TV, while newer, has faced more significant declines. In 2009, way back in 2009, 92% of Americans aged 12 or older listened to traditional or terrestrial radio in a given week. By 2022, that number had fallen 10%. Okay, you say, oh, well, that's not good. Yeah, well, it is compared to how others have fallen. Pay TV fell 20%, and it continues to shrink. Terrestrial radio has stayed steady even as other mediums like satellite radio, podcasts, Apple CarPlay have come on board, said Guggenheim media analyst Curry Baker. Historically, radio personalities and stations have engaged with local audience, which tend to be sticky. In other words, they come, they find favor with what you do, and they stick around. And I know that to be true because our audience is so incredibly loyal to what we do every day. They say that never really happened on cable networks. Radio, they go on to say, has maintained the upper hand on many media formats, partly because of its accessibility and the relative lack of cost barriers. I mean, radio is free. Most cars come already equipped with AM/FM radios, no additional cost, and the majority of U.S. drivers choose to listen to terrestrial AM/FM radio over any other form of entertainment while they're on the road. You may be on the road right now. And it is the relationship between the people on radio and their audience which makes it to be something that people form as a habit. And I think that's something. It's an interactive medium, especially talk radio. I like to say that, we talk about interactive media as something new. Talk radio has been interactive from the very start. And we love it when they interact with us. So it's really interesting. I thought that, at a time when other forms of media are starting to really drop off, there has been remarkable steadiness in the radio audience and the power of radio. And so I would say, number one, well, thank you. We appreciate that. Number two, and this is very self-serving, but let me say it anyway. If you are somebody who's thinking about trying to promote a product, what better way than to have a product that reaches people and the people who listen to that particular product are very loyal. And when you have someone who comes out and says, this is a product I endorse, then they are likely, if they like that person, to look favorably upon the product. And again, that's very self-serving, but I mean, really true. I have really enjoyed my transition from TV into radio. And I have come to really appreciate this medium that is theater of the mind that allows us to have such a warm and very special relationship with our audience. All right, a little self-serving, but nonetheless, I thought interesting. 30 minutes now, past the hour, time for the news. Listen, if you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltz Co. are two guys that you need to chat with. I mean, you really should give them a call. They're known for exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltz Co. difference. Now, you can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool or work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. And what they do is they take the classic post-frame barn look and they add to it the reliability of modern materials and building techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So I want you to do me a favor and go to their website. It's stoltzco.com. And I'm going to spell that for you. STOLTZCO. Stoltzco.com. Take a look at some of the things they've done for other people, and I think you're going to quickly come to the conclusion that this is not your grandpappy's pole barn. And then give them a call. This is new. This is different. This is better. 615-622-5992. Stoltz Co., where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. 615-622-5992. Learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We're here until 7 o'clock, and then we hand it over after the news to the one, the only, the great one, Mark Levin. He will carry on throughout the evening, and there's a lot of stuff for him to carry on about today. Chris, I'm very excited. I've been holding on to this and not talking about it because I don't want to be mocked by my loving spouse, cabana wife. Yeah. But I've had a dream for a long time.
Okay.
I have decided that I want to become an elite Nashville studio musician.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, now look, I mean, I play guitar and I play bass and a little, I fiddle around with the keyboard. None of it very good. But I mean, it's just something I do sort of for fun. But I've decided that I want to be on the hit records of today, and I've been thinking about trying to become an elite musician in some obscure area where you may not need them often, but when you need them, I'm going to be the guy you call for.
Yeah, you'll be synonymous with that, whatever it is.
Yeah, with that obscure instrument.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to think, so I didn't want her to know this because she's on a plane right now, so she can't hear me.
All right, you're safe.
For the next hour or so, she's on a plane, and I can talk about this, and she'll never hear about it.
Okay.
I have purchased a theremin. Do you know what a theremin is?
Yeah, I know what a theremin is, yeah.
I'd say probably the best-known song that features a theremin is Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that one. Let's see. There it is.
It's that, woo! That's a theremin.
Yep.
Okay, so the thing is, I don't imagine there'll be a great call for theremin players, but I want to be in the musicians registry. I want to become an elite theremin player. Now, the theremin is it's an electronic device, and you play it by moving your hand over the instrument. Somehow it senses your hand. And then it makes that the oscillator circuits or the organ circuits are manipulated as you move your hands up and down, left and right. Oh, you have some more?
Let's see. This guy is doing Over the Rainbow. That's kind of haunting. I like that.
You've got to have somebody in Nashville that would want a theremin now and then, right?
I'm sure there's a call for it occasionally, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. It is a very interesting looking instrument, isn't it?
Yeah. It has antennae instead of strings or keyboards or anything like that. Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, it arrived on the front porch just as Cabana Wife left town. So, by the time I get to Monday, I'm going to be a very proficient theremin player.
You've never played one before?
I've never played one before.
You've never touched one before?
No, but I think I've got the skills for it.
Okay. All right. I have faith in you.
All right. So stay tuned. If you're on Monday, there will be a theremin concert.
Oh, boy. I can't wait.
This is probably the silliest thing I've ever purchased in my life.
I bet it would be a lot of fun to play with.
I think it's going to be fun. I really do. I mean, I want to mess around with it a little bit. We'll see. It wasn't very expensive. Let's put it that way. Believe me, I've spent a lot more on guitars than I spent on this thing. Listen, as we wrap up our week, we have a bunch of stories that I want to sort of get into the mix, and they don't really. Some of them don't really go together very much. Some do, some don't. But I want to. What we do normally is we squish them together, like that. Okay, so we're just going to do a lot of squishing all the way up to the top of the hour. This actually is breaking news. Apparently, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is said to be recovering after being admitted to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center on Monday. According to a press secretary at the Pentagon, the hospitalization was because of, quote, a complication from a recent elective medical procedure, but that Austin should be resuming his full duties. He's prepared to act for and exercise the powers of the secretary, not disclosed because of an evolving situation and due to medical and privacy concerns. We don't know what it is, but he didn't have to delegate his duties. He's automatically authorized to perform the duties, and if he's unable to perform, the official said, the deputy secretary is automatically authorized to perform duties of the secretary if the secretary is somehow unable to perform them. That's already in the mix. So there you have it. That's number one. Number two. Nashville recorded 101 homicide cases in 2023. And then what I draw from this is, look, apparently it's down slightly, but that's still a lot of people to die on the streets of Nashville. There have been some of them you will, of course, remember. Very sad, the attack at Covenant. 6 people dead, 3 children, and 3 adults. There have been some other ones that are really, but I found the most interesting thing about it is the mixture of information about age, gender, and nationality. And race. A third of all victims are very young, between 20 and 29 years old. The second highest number of victims were teenagers or younger, and that's pretty amazing. 4 out of 5 victims were men, a trend that has remained steady for several years. All but one of the 8 fatal domestic violence victims were women, accounting for 37% of the total female victims were female. The majority of victims are black, accounting for at least 62% of the cases in 2023. And that's been a pretty consistent trend, according to the experts, since 2016. Hispanic people surpassed white people, though, as being the second category for the first time. Numbers have remained steadily, the whites were number 2, but 21 people identified as Hispanic were counted among the victims in 2023. 16 victims were white, and 2 were Asian. So there is that. And again, that's a very sad story. But again, what it tells me is that there is a problem, it would seem to me, of violence among young black people. And I don't mean to cast aspersions or draw too large a conclusion, but I think many times we seem to be reluctant in Nashville to go after, enforcement in some communities, but that's where the crime is. And that's where the violent crime is. It would seem, at least according to these statistics, which, statistics, draw from them what you will. But at least in our next story, we are not Memphis. Memphis has the highest 2023 murder rate of all large U.S. cities. That's amazing. Now, what they do is they take 100,000 people, how many homicides per 100,000 people, and Memphis was number 1 in the nation. 397 homicides. That's about 63.9 homicides per 100,000 people. That rate exceeded the murder rate of Chicago, Philadelphia, and it was greater than Baltimore, Detroit, and New Orleans. It makes you understand why a lot of people have decided they're going to get out of Memphis, and why perhaps the governor was correct to send extra law enforcement in the form of state troopers to Memphis to help them get things under control. Wow, and they've already had one so far this year. So at least we're not Memphis, that's for sure. Next story, this is a very, after 2 sad stories, this is a very uplifting story and very exciting story, and something that I feel really, really, really good about. Our radio station has a long-standing relationship with the Nashville Rescue Mission. We believe it is in what they do there. We love the fact that they are a faith-based organization, that they come in and they help people who have found themselves down on their luck. Maybe they don't have a place to eat or sleep. And it started out as being something that was traditionally aimed at homeless men. But over the years, the folks at the Nashville Rescue Mission began to understand that there were women and children who often found themselves to be homeless. And they began trying to minister to them as well. One of the things I love is it's not just a hot cot and a meal. It is also a place where they try to figure out what it is that caused you to be homeless and help you work through that issue. Sometimes it's an addiction. Sometimes it's other things. Sometimes it's just a couple of bad breaks. Whatever it is, they help you get back on your feet and get you back as a productive citizen in this community, and that's a great thing. But now they have opened a brand new women's campus effective yesterday, 71,880 square feet building that's been renovated over the past 2 years, 348 shelters, beds. This can take place and take care of women and children, keep mothers and their children together, and that's a good thing. Last year, the mission helped 1,800 women and nearly 440 kids. The project cost some $24 million and was entirely funded by donations. And if you are someone who has contributed money during our radiothon that we do on an annual basis, then you have been a part of that. Good on you, and good on the Nashville Rescue Mission for recognizing the need, stepping up without one penny of taxpayer dollars. I am so happy to see that this is now underway, and this community is really blessed by the presence of the Nashville Rescue Mission. Okay, next. Oh, that's a really disgusting one. There are a lot of people living in their cars. And in some places, and you won't be shocked at all to find out where they are now setting aside refuge safe parking lots. Municipalities and nonprofits, according to The Guardian, are establishing secure lots to address the rising number of people who live in cars or their RVs. Starting in October of 21, about 40 motorhomes or recreational vehicles parked on a lot in Grayson Street in Berkeley, California, as part of the city's first attempt as a safe parking lot. The space had been mostly unused since 2008, but a local nonprofit, the Dorothy Day House, created the Safe Parking and Respite Kickstart program to help alleviate the crisis of unsheltered and encampment homeless in the nation, one of the nation's most expensive housing markets. It filled such a pressing need that they have now expanded that. They have now made a bigger effort to provide lots for people who sleep in their cars, have no home, or have an RV or a motorhome in which has become their home. So that's an interesting thing that I think is happening. I mentioned the other day that I had been, as part of my responsibilities as Cabana Wife's helpmate, it's my job to sometimes take her around on the grocery run. Because we have to go to 6 different grocery stores.
You got to get all the deals, Brian.
I guess. I don't understand it. But we go to a bunch of different grocery stores. And so what I do is my job, deliver her at the door, sit down in the parking lot, wait for her to come out, meet her, load it, get out of there, get to the next one. It's what we've worked out. I don't want to go in. You do the shopping, but she gets it knocked right out.
It's a process.
It's a process, and I'm glad to help her. But I was sitting out in the parking lot of a Walmart in Mount Juliet, and I happened to notice the car that I was I was just sort of motor running, sitting and watching what was going on around me. I noticed the car next to me. It was very clear that someone was living in that car. And then and as I drove around, I saw a second one. There are people, through no fault of their own, find themselves having to live in their car, and they're often doing so in like a big parking lot. And Walmart has a sort of a long-standing policy of allowing people to overnight in their parking lot. Like, for example, if you got an RV and a trailer and you get caught somewhere late at night and you need a place to stop, catch some short, they never mind. It's okay. You can take your RV and you can spend the night overnight in a Walmart parking lot. And I actually have done this. And you'll find usually late at night there's 4 or 5, RVs in your basic Walmart parking lot. But now apparently it's a place where people are actually taking up residence. And I thought that very sad. But, apparently this is something that's being tried in other areas to give people a safe and secure place. If you find yourself in that unfortunate position, you find a place that you can stay where at least, you will be more safe than just being out in some back alley somewhere. Next story. This one is interesting. And Chris, I'd like your thoughts on it. Driverless trucks with no humans on board will soon cruise Texas highways if 3 startup firms have their way. This according to Bloomberg, despite objection from critics who say financial pressures, not safety, is behind the timetable. After years of testing, Aurora Innovation, Kodiak Robotics, and Gatic Al Inc. expect to remove safety drivers from trucks that are being guided by software and an array of sensors, including cameras, radar, LiDAR, which sends pulses of light that bounce off objects. They have already hauled cargo for big names like Walmart, Kroger, FedEx, Tyson, etc. At the end of the year, we anticipate getting to the point where we begin operating those trucks without anyone on board. Wow. Yeah. All the companies say they're ready to deploy the technology, so they say there's little to no margin for error. The risk is worth it, they say, because the technology promises to improve highway safety and lower transportation costs. I mean, they say that these are, more reliable than human drivers. I don't know. I mean, can you imagine driving down the interstate highway and you look over at that big rig, which is carrying, how many tons of goods, and there's nobody behind the wheel?
Yeah, and I'm not so much worried about the driverless truck as I'm worried about all the other cars on the road that see this truck with nobody driving and then because quite honestly, it's kind of going to become a spectacle. People are going to be looking for them and then pulling up alongside them, and maybe it's trying to test the safety of these driverless trucks. It's the cars on the road with drivers in them that I'm kind of more worried about than the actual driverless trucks.
Yeah, well, you're talking about 80,000 pounds or more. They've had real trouble with the robo-taxis that have tried to do this, but that's, I don't know, to me, using this technology out on the interstate highway is a lot less problematic than trying to drive a robo-taxi in a crowded, busy street in a major metropolitan area. Federal government has for now left regulation of driverless large trucks up to states. And that means that states can make their own decisions. So in the state of Texas, for example, they're going to petition them to try this out. And I'm telling you, listen, I promise you, I've been on some of these interstate highways in the barren, parts of West Texas. It would be no challenge for an automated truck to drive down those, because it's straight.
Yeah.
For like 300 miles, there is not a bend in the road, It's just flat and straight. So maybe that would work. I don't know. We'll see. 55 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. So how are you faring in the rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management say, well, it can be scary. Up one day, down the next, up and down, up and down. But here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. Here's the number, 615-488-9303. Now, the experts at Beacon will take it from there. You have really nothing to lose here except for the worry. So get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing that you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. You can replace the worry with confidence that you are on the right path. 615-488-9303, the experts at Beacon. They stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. or you can call 615-851-1950.